This is Ocean Robbins, and I am so excited that in just a couple minutes we're going to begin day 4 of the Food Revolution Summit. We'll be starting with Dr. William Lee, followed an hour after that by an interview with Chris Wark, and an hour after that we'll be on the line with Anthony William. Today's topic is food and cancer. Nourish every cell to stay well. Cancer now takes the lives of more than 8 million people every year, and the devastating toll keeps rising. But do you know what's causing this epidemic? Is it bad luck or bad genetics or the deficiency of some drug that hasn't yet been invented? No, it's not. 90% of cancer is actually caused by a combination of diet, lifestyle, and environment. 9 out of every 10 cases. And today we are going to find out how we can seize the power to prevent and fight cancer with our knives and forks. In a few moments, you will hear us on the line with Dr. William Lee. At the top of the next hour, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern, 4 p.m. GMT, you'll hear from Chris Wark, and an hour after that, from Anthony William. As always, each interview will be expertly guided by my dad and colleague, John Robbins. It'll last about 45 minutes, and it'll be followed by questions, answers, reflections, take-it-home insights from me. Now let me ask you, do you want to know how to beat cancer? Do you want to discover how you can truly nourish every cell in your body? Because if you do, you're in the right place. We'll begin with Dr. William Lee in a moment. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Dr. William Lee. Dr. William Lee is a renowned doctor, scientist, and angiogenesis expert. His groundbreaking work has impacted more than 70 diseases, including cancer, diabetes, blindness, heart disease, and obesity. Dr. Lee's wildly popular TED Talk, Can We Eat to Starve Cancer?, has been seen by more than 11 million people. He founded the Eat to Beat Cancer Initiative, which is a community of 50,000 people committed to learning about how to use diet to fight cancer. Dr. Lee has held faculty appointments at Harvard and Tufts University. And in a moment, you're going to hear some very exciting anti-cancer research, and you're going to find out which surprising foods you need to eat and not eat if you want to prevent cancer and enjoy health in every cell. So now, Will, my dad and I are so excited about your groundbreaking work, and we're so glad to have this time with you. And now for the interview, I'm going to hand it over to my dad, John Robbins.
Well, thank you, Ocean, and thank you, Will, for being with us once again.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
1 in 2 American men and 1 in 3 American women are expected to be diagnosed with cancer at some point in our lives. But research is telling us that many of us may be walking around with cancer right now, far more of us than we would like to believe. Autopsy studies of people who died in car accidents show that about 40% of women between the ages of 40 and 50 already have microscopic cancers in the breast, and about 50% of men in their 50s have them in their prostate glands. And by the time we reach our 70s, virtually all of us will have microscopic cancers in our thyroid glands. What I want to ask you, Will, is does this mean that we're probably forming microscopic cancers in our bodies all the time, though we don't know it? And if so, is this all the more reason not to wait to adopt a healthy anti-cancer diet?
That's a great question. And yes, all the research is pointing to the fact that cancer is actually a natural process of just being alive. We have trillions of cells in our body, and they're always dividing. And all it takes is for 1 or 2 mistakes of those trillion cells that are dividing, for the 1 or 2 mistakes to happen, and instantaneously we have the potential to form a cancer. And most of these cancers are invisible, and they're going to stay invisible because the defense systems of our body, including our immune system, looks out for these bad guy cells and clears them out. our body's ability to prevent blood vessels from feeding those microscopic cancers is another defense. And there are other ways that our body actually takes care of these errant cells. These cells become a problem, these cancerous cells become a problem only when they're actually able to hijack our blood supplies so that they can selfishly feed themselves and then grow, and when they're able to cloak themselves like ninjas to hide from our immune system. In those instances where they're able to hide from destruction, our body's own security force, and they're able to pull out blood vessels to feed themselves, that's when these invisible cancers wind up becoming clinical problems. And so, yes, the entire effort to prevent cancer is very possible by helping to boost our defense systems using our diet, and so that we can prevent blood vessels from growing into tumors, microscopic cancers, and we can also boost our immune system so that they can work harder to find those bad cells. Absolutely, it is a reality, and the public health as well as the laboratory studies now show that eating an anti-cancer diet can change the trajectory of our fate.
Which is a very powerful reality, and I want everyone who's listening to us today to understand it as fully as possible, which will help them to do in this conversation. Your Eat to Beat Cancer initiative has been showing through your research that certain foods have specific properties that can starve the microscopic cancers that develop in our bodies all the time. Based on the latest medical science, Will, are there, in fact, practical, healthy, and tasty food choices that we can make every day at every meal to incorporate cancer-fighting foods into our diets?
Absolutely. And, the obvious needs to be stated because, in fact, plant-based foods form the basis of an anti-angiogenic, anti-cancer diet. We know for a fact that most plants, particularly the healthy ones like green vegetables and colorful fruits, all the ones that we know intuitively are good for us, actually have the scientific underpinning, which is what our research is doing, to explain how they actually combat cancer. For example, if you take a look at categories like green leafy vegetables, if you look at fruits, if you look at nuts and grains, if you take a look at legumes and root vegetables, they all contain natural chemicals that are called bioactives. Most of them have a very different role in the plants in which they're growing. Oftentimes, they're actually serving as a colorful attractant for bees and butterflies to pollinate the plants, so they're helping them survive. Sometimes these bioactives are taste terrible to insects, so they actually wind up becoming natural pest repellents. But when we, as humans, evolved and began eating plants, which is really from the very beginning, it was very difficult for early man to eat meat. There just wasn't that much meat around. But there were plants, and in foraging for plants and eating the plants, we started to give these natural chemicals, these bioactives, another job to do. And that other job is actually to interact not with the plant cells, but with our human cells. And what we now know is that leafy greens like beet leaves and chard greens and mustard greens and chicory and escarole, all of these types of dark leafy, delicious vegetables have the natural bioactives that can reduce the risk of cancers ranging from colon, lung, and ovarian cancer. And what's really amazing, John, is that you don't need to eat a lot of them. The large public health studies have shown that in general, eating 1 cup of raw dark greens or a half a cup of cooked once a day or 2 or 3 times a week is enough to significantly lower the risk of disease. When you switch over to the colorful fruits, which can be seasonal, like stone fruits like peaches and nectarines and apricots in the summertime, switch over to apples in the fall and pears, and then you can really see that these delicious fruits also offer protective benefits against cancers of the esophagus, of the head and neck, and the lung as well. So no matter what season you go to, whether it's spring, summer, fall, and I didn't even mention winter yet because that's where these root vegetables like beets and parsnips and turnips and even some form of potatoes, we can actually find reasonable ways to have the intake and to have them prepared in delicious ways that can protect us by boosting our defense systems. And so that's what the Eat to Beat community is all about. It's a global community, 50,000 and growing members in 80 plus countries that are all excited to discover which foods that they already enjoy and which foods they don't even know about yet can actually help them fight cancer in a delicious and life-enhancing way. And so, people can go to the eattobeat.org website and sign up to be part of this growing, lively, global community about people who are passionate about using food to conquer cancer. And actually, for this program especially, we want to offer people who sign up a free gift. I've actually worked through my researchers to create a free e-cookbook that has a special group of disease-fighting recipes containing these selected ingredients that are simple, easy, convenient, tasty, and healthy that can take you from breakfast through lunch to dinner. So I want to encourage people to get involved, take your life into your own hands, and join our Eat to Beat program and get some of these recipes.
Well, thank you for that. You mentioned potatoes a moment ago. Potatoes are originally native to the Andes, where over 4,000 varieties are still grown there. And they come in many different shapes and sizes and colors. There's red ones and yellow ones and purple ones. There's striped ones and spotted potatoes. In the United States, which has 10 times more people than Peru does, just 6 varieties account for 3/4 of our national potato harvest. And those varieties dominate because they're easy to store and to transport and to process, especially into French fries and potato chips. But it's purple potatoes in particular that were considered to be treasures by the Incas of Peru. And what I want to ask you, Will, is what have you discovered about purple potatoes that makes them a modern treasure?
It's very exciting, this discovery. The color of the potatoes are due to a natural chemical called anthocyanins. They resemble the same types of natural food coloring or natural dyes that make blueberries blue and other foods blue. As you know, there's not that many foods in the world that are blues and purples. One thing that anthocyanins in purple potatoes do is they stop blood vessels from feeding cancer cells. That's the first thing they do. Secondly, they can actually help to enhance and boost your immune system and immune cells. The third thing is that they can also stimulate the healthy gut bacteria that can actually keep our intestines functioning really well. But the thing that I'm really excited to share with the listeners is that a group at Penn State led by Professor Jairam Vanamala, who is one of my advisors at the Angiogenesis Foundation, discovered that the purple potato actually kills the stem cells that lead to colon cancer. So cancer is a difficult disease to treat. You can remove them by surgery, you can treat them with radiation, but they tend to come back, as we all know. The only reason and the only way they can come back is through these stem cells. So suddenly we have discovered, unlocked the secrets, and given another reason that purple potatoes are so valuable is that eating purple potatoes can kill the stem cells responsible for cancer.
That is incredible and makes me want to go out and get some right now. You mentioned among the many beneficial attributes of purple potatoes is that they enhance the healthy gut bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
We know our gut health depends on beneficial bacteria, and we know that what we eat affects our gut bacteria. Are there any other examples of foods that can make a difference in this way?
Yes, well, so the gut bacteria is essentially a second you, meaning that, there is the you, the person who inhabits your body and speaks your mind. But then there's also the bacteria you. And this is another part that's amazing about our defense systems, is that we've now discovered that the bacteria in our body, which are the same number roughly as the cells in our body, so 1 to 1. For every human cell, there's a bacteria cell, and they're all wrapped up inside our bodies, that the bacteria talk to our immune system and help tell the immune system to have a better function. Now, we don't understand everything there is to know about the microbiome or the ecology of the healthy bacteria in our body, but we're just starting to peel back the layers of the onion. Here's what we do know. We are one by one trying to identify the bacteria that can be most helpful, and also finding along the way that there are bacteria that can make a big difference in terms of whether you develop cancer or frankly even live or die while you're being treated for cancer. So for example, I co-chaired a conference in Paris last year in which a discovery was made that people who are being treated by immune therapies, which is one of the biggest breakthroughs in cancer treatment and cancer research today. I mean, these immune therapies can take patients riddled with cancer, and in about 20% of people make all the cancer to go away simply by activating the immune system in an exceptional manner. Now, that means that about 80% of people don't benefit from these immune therapies. And at this cancer conference was one of the researchers who discovered that a single bacteria called Akkermansia actually was responsible in the response to immune therapy, meaning that if you had this bacteria, you likely would respond to the immune therapy, and if you didn't have it, you probably wouldn't respond. That's putting the smoking gun on a single bacteria. Now, you can't eat that bacteria through a probiotic. The only way you can get that Akkermansia bacteria to grow is using your diet, and by eating pomegranates and cranberries, whether it's the fruit or the juice. And only about a cup of the juice is all you need. It changes the ecology, the microenvironment of your intestines to favor the growth of that bacteria. We make it really nice real estate for that healthy gut bacteria to grow. So these are just a couple of examples of how powerful bacteria can be, but they can make the difference between life and death. And with regard to the juice, which I think is really good for really true pomegranate juice, the key thing that your listeners will want to know is many times pomegranate juice is apple juice that's spiked with a little bit of pomegranate flavor. And it's not really pomegranate juice. And the way to check to see if it's truly mostly pomegranate juice or all pomegranate juice is to check the label. And if pomegranate juice is the first ingredient, it's probably the real deal. Now, there's more. Pomegranate juice that you take seeds and just crush will give you really great polyphenols that you can drink that are cancer fighting. But it's even better when you have a juicer that can press the juice from the seeds through the skin. That rind around the pomegranate that we normally don't eat, and it's not very tasty, contains a lot of the polyphenols. So when you actually press the juice out through the skin, you actually extract out some of those extra polyphenols from the skin itself, and it actually doesn't make the juice really bitter. It just loads it up with more of these polyphenols. So a little tip.
Pomegranate seeds are one type of seed, but most of the seeds that we eat are things like sunflower seeds and sesame seeds and chia seeds and flax seeds. And we have many studies showing that these seeds and nuts have remarkable health benefiting properties. But your research has found that nuts have some even more surprising properties. Can you tell us about those?
Sure. Well, nuts are not only tasty and a really convenient snack. Now, they're only really healthy if they're not coated with all the chemicals and things that we don't want them to be coated with. But a natural nut is one of the tastiest snacks you can actually have, and it's a great source of fiber, and it contains vitamins, and indeed it contains cancer-fighting polyphenols. And these polyphenols can inhibit angiogenesis or starve cancers. They can actually help enhance your immune system. And they also, by the way, contain healthy omega-3 fatty acids, these PUFAs that, you hear people talking about in eating fish like salmon. We can get them in a plant-based food like a nut. So it's you don't have to, take a fish out of the ocean. You can actually just eat a nut from a tree. Here's something that's really, really amazing. The American Society for Clinical Oncology recently published a study looking at patients with stage 3 colon cancer. This is 800 patients with stage 3 colon cancer. That's cancer that's actually spread beyond the colon, and these patients are really sick and they're under treatment. This study showed that patients with colon cancer who ate only about 2 ounces or more of tree nuts a week, that's about 2 handfuls of nut a week, had a 53% lower chance of death from the colon cancer than those who didn't eat the nuts. In other words, if you're actually a cancer patient with colon cancer, regardless of the treatment, if you have a couple of handful of nuts a week, that can completely change your outcome in a dramatic way that actually isn't that difficult to do, and it's not something the doctor would prescribe. It's something that people do themselves.
So just by eating a few handfuls of tree nuts that grow on trees, you can enhance your ability to survive from colon cancer and help to defeat the cancer if it's in your body. Would that mean also that eating nuts would help to prevent cancer?
Yes, there's a number of studies that also take a look at the cancer preventative properties of eating nuts as well. And, this is something that is actively being researched right now, and especially by the mainstream medical community, because now that we are onto the fact that the nuts can make a difference in people who are already sick, the bigger, more interesting question is, what if you are already well? Can that actually stave off the disease altogether? And because we know these nuts contain immune-boosting, anti-angiogenic, healthy omega-3s, and by the way, also dietary fiber that feeds the microbiome, the bacteria in your gut, that talks to your immune system and helps those immune cells to figure out where the bad guys are, your patrol security force, to look for those tiny little cancers. It's very likely that we're going to find something even more dramatic by people who are just eating nuts before they get sick.
Nuts have been part of the human diet for thousands of years. And another food that also has been are mushrooms. Many varieties of edible mushrooms play important roles in the diets of many cultures. And in recent years, there's been a great deal of research conducted into the medicinal properties of mushrooms. And it's becoming increasingly clear that mushrooms contain important bioactive compounds that can play powerful roles in cancer prevention and even in cancer treatment. Will, what do we need to know about mushrooms?
First thing to know is that it's probably not a good idea to go into the woods to pick them yourselves, because some of them are actually poisonous. But that said, if you go to a market where somebody is foraging and knows what they're doing, or if you go to the supermarket, which is what most of us actually do, I'm not a woodsman that goes out to look for my mushrooms, but I love mushrooms. They taste amazing. What I know is that regardless of the type of mushroom, almost all of them contain this natural chemical called a beta-glucan, or beta-glucans, because there's many different types. And these are polysaccharides that are actually located in the cell wall of mushrooms. They are anti-angiogenic, they're immune-boosting, they're anti-inflammatory, and they also feed your healthy gut bacteria. So there's a theme that's emerging here, which is that nature has packaged into some of the tastiest foods the ingredients that already actually help to enhance our defense systems. Now, we know that when you eat a mushroom, most of us, to prepare the mushroom, take them home, we cut off the stem, and we prepare the cap by chopping them up and then cooking them. But here's another tip that I can provide your listeners, which is that it turns out that the stem of the mushroom contains about 30% more beta-glucan than the cap. The cap contains beta-glucan, but the stem has even more. And so this is now a reason not to throw those stems away, but to find something really great to do with them. You can slice them up and saute them. You can actually turn them into soup. And there's many different types of cuisine, mostly international cuisines that actually regularly use mushroom stems. So don't throw away the gold.
There's another food I want to ask you about. You mentioned beets earlier. Most people know that beets are healthy. But your research is showing that beets have some surprising health benefits. Can you tell us what those are and what makes beets so important to include in an anti-cancer diet?
Right. Well, beets are red, and as I mentioned with the purple potatoes, the color kind of gives away that they have a secret that they want to share with us. In this case, the red color of beets is due to a natural dye called betanin. And these betanin's actually are anti-angiogenic and immune boosting, and they also help to feed our gut bacteria. So again, that theme coming back up. And the darker the beet, the more potent the action. And there's been a large number of studies that actually show consuming beets, half cup cooked or 1 cup raw. And by the way, the leaves or tops of the leaves of the beet plant is also good. Beet leaves are also delicious and also have cancer-fighting properties as well. So there's one huge benefit of eating these colorful foods. But there's another secret to beets. And that secret is that not only is it anti-cancer, but it's actually good for our hearts. And the reason it's good for our heart is that beets are a great source of natural nitrates that come from the ground in which they grow. Most of us have this incorrect impression that nitrates are actually bad for us. And maybe as food additives, if they're artificial nitrates, that's something you want to avoid. And I think most of us who are focused on plant-based foods may not even realize that the ground is one of the biggest contributors of nitrates in our food. Well, it turns out that when you eat a beet, the bacteria, the microbiome that's on your tongue, actually processes the nitrogen that you swallow, that you have in your mouth from the beets, and changes its chemistry in a way that when you swallow it, those nitrates actually dilate our blood vessels and help to lower our blood pressure. And so what's ironic is that on one hand, the beets are able to help us fight cancer, and on the other side of the equation, they're actually able to control our blood pressure as well. If you try to knock out those healthy bacteria on our tongue, and dentists will sometimes prescribe mouthwash that is really powerful mouthwash that completely clears out and kills all of your tongue bacteria, guess what happens to your blood pressure when you eat beets? Nothing. Your blood pressure doesn't go down. In fact, your blood pressure goes up because you're not actually able to process the nitrogen the same way. So think about beets as a double-barreled benefit when you eat them. Good for your heart and good for keeping cancer away.
That is a remarkable fact about our tongue bacteria. We are populated by bacteria throughout our bodies, on our skin, but within our intestines and throughout our whole body, really. And those bacteria play an incredibly important role in our health, don't they?
That's right. Well, what's interesting is that the bacteria is on our skin, it's in our hair, it's in every orifice of our body, and the bacteria that grow in our gut actually live next door to a lining in our intestines that's like a jelly roll lining of our immune cells. And so inside our intestines is this extra lining of immune cells that our bacteria that live in our gut directly talk to. They just kind of knock on the wall, and they're able to actually tell their neighbors what to do. And so one bacteria that we have been working on as well through our research and our collaboration with a professor at MIT is a lactobacillus that comes from, oftentimes is found in yogurt, but it actually is given from the mother to the baby through breast milk. And what's really amazing is this lactobacillus reuteri bacteria It's transferred from generation to generation through breastfeeding. The bacteria goes into the babies when they're young. They set up shop and they colonize our gut. And what the bacteria does is really remarkable. Number one, it boosts our immune system by talking to the thymus gland that makes antibodies and helps our immune cells mature. It also talks to our gut fat and tells the fat cells not to grow, which is quite remarkable that a bacteria can actually help keep you slim. The third thing is that it actually helps to boost your anti-tumor immunity. And for women, it's helpful to know that Lactobacillus reuteri decreases the growth or the ability for breast cancer cells to grow, and also colon cancer cells as well. And for men, it's also been found that this bacteria also helps keep the gonads or the testicles actually in really great shape and helps to keep up normal, healthy levels of testosterone. One last thing that's been discovered about this Lactobacillus reuteri, which comes from mom to baby, lives in our gut, is that this bacteria talks to our brain. The bacteria causes the brain to release a social hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin makes us feel good. It's actually what's released from our brains when we give a hug to somebody else or have a handshake. And so now we're saying that bacteria not only talks to our immune system, it actually makes us social as well.
Is this bacteria available as a probiotic?
It is. Actually, Lactobacillus, in fact, is available as a probiotic. And so, you can find this just on the internet through Amazon. I take a couple of tablets of these probiotics myself every day because once you see the research that has been published on this, and anybody can go to PubMed, the National Library of Medicine, to look up Lactobacillus reuteri, their jaws will drop when they take a look at what's been discovered.
That's amazing. I want to talk with you now a little bit about the onion family and its role in our health and in beating cancer. The onion family includes all kinds of onions, of course, but it also includes garlic and leeks and shallots and chives. And there are also members of the onion family that grow wild. When it comes to the entire onion family, based on your research and on other studies in the medical literature, are there some things we should be looking for in the supermarkets and in the grocery stores that can help our health?
Yes. So onions and garlic belong to a family of vegetables called allium. And the strong, distinctive, pungent taste that can be strong like garlic or mild in some cases as well, like chives, for example, or leeks are really mild tasting. They all have a sulfide, which is a sulfur compound that gives these vegetables their roots their distinctive taste. They have allicin, which is a really classic chemical for this group. They also have bioactives that have some fancy sounding names that are difficult to pronounce, like apigenin and luteolin and camphorol. The key thing, though, is that as they come out during the season, for example, ramps are a wild type of scallion, and they grow in wetlands, and they come out, and they come out only for a few weeks in the spring. You harvest them, and you can just put them on a hot skillet for a few seconds with a little bit of olive oil, and in seconds they will cook and turn into the most delicious, heavenly greens that you've had in a long time. That's picking them when they're fresh and eating them when they're fresh. They really only last a day when you bring them home from the market. To looking at leeks, for example, that it's tougher, more fibers. You have to cook it longer. Those are great in stews. To garlic, which you can actually keep, throughout the year because they can actually be dried, they can actually be pickled, and they all retain these really pungent smells. So the same way that, in some cases, color gives away the fact they have health benefits, for the onion family, it's their smell and their taste. That pungency tells you there's something powerful in them that can actually directly kill cancer cells. They can cut off the blood supply to feeding those cancers, and they can boost the immune system.
I've seen studies that were done in Italy and in Switzerland also that have found that people who eat vegetables in the onion family every day have, in these studies, were shown to have a remarkable 73% lower risk for ovarian cancer and a stunning 88% lower risk for cancer of the esophagus compared to people who were eating these vegetables less than once a week. Those are phenomenal numbers. Uh, Will, can you tell us why garlic and other members of the onion family are such potent anti-cancer foods?
Yeah, I think it's the nature of the bioactives. They are powerful in terms of their taste. They're powerful in terms of their anti-cancer activity. And these large epidemiological studies that you mentioned in Italy are exactly where these foods are actually grown and routinely used in cooking in daily life. And so I think the more that you eat, they contain these sulfurous compounds that actually give them their pungency. It's exactly the taste that makes them distinctive, that confer that value to people. Sometimes we need to recognize that the more flavorful the food, using onions and garlics and members of the allium family, that flavor actually contributes to your health as well.
When you mentioned sulfurous compounds in the onion family, I'm also thinking about sulfurous compounds in the cabbage family. These are vegetables known as cruciferous vegetables. They include broccoli and kale and collards and all kinds of cabbages and cauliflower and turnip greens and arugula and other veggies too. And one explanation for the proven cancer-fighting powers of the vegetables in this family is that they're high in glucosinolates, which are sulfur-containing compounds that give these vegetables their distinctive flavor and smell. Have glucosinolates been shown to inhibit the processes that are closely linked to cancer development, such as angiogenesis and inflammation? And might that partly explain why vegetables in the cabbage family are so important in an anti-cancer diet?
Yes, absolutely. The glucosinolates actually interfere with many cell pathways associated with cancer. They directly cut the tripwires of the cancer's ability to grow themselves, the cancer cells. They also interfere with angiogenesis. And so now you really have a double-barreled approach. And also the isothiocyanates, which is sort of a large category of these glucosinolates, are potent immune stimulators as well. So again, this theme of working on multiple defense systems, the same food with small numbers of these bioactives that activate multiple defense pathways is really good. Now, a couple of interesting things about the cruciferous vegetables with these distinctive taste and smells is that there are little things that they can actually do to the processes of cancer development. So, for example, there was a clinical study in smokers, and obviously smoking increases your risk of lung cancer, that found that if you eat watercress, which, by the way, is among that family that contains isothiocyanates, that eating just 6 ounces a day, so that's not very much, of watercress actually can interfere with the activation of the carcinogens that comes in cigarette smoke. And so some of these glucosinolates and the isocyanates actually neutralize carcinogens. One additional tip to actually know about is that, as you might expect, they can protect against the cancers that might come in your gastrointestinal tract because we're swallowing them. So that's where the bioactives are going to have some of their strongest effects. Now, the glucosinolates actually are locked up in the plant cell wall. So if you wolf your food down, take a big bite, chew just a couple of times and chuck it down, swallow it down, you don't actually release these isothiocyanates. What you really need to be able to do, and this is, like what our moms told us, is you need to chew your food adequately, because when you chew your food, it turns out by chewing the foods, you break down those cell walls. There is a enzyme in the plant called myrosinase that when you chew them comes out, and that enzyme from the plant opens up the cell wall of the plant and releases the glucosinolates. So chewing helps unlock and unleash these glucosinolates so that they can actually give you the benefit. Not only should you choose the right foods, you should chew your foods in order to be able to get the most out of them.
When you chew your foods, you break down these compounds and enhance their benefits. You also allow the bacteria in your mouth and on your tongue that we spoke of earlier to do its job more fully. There's something about our fast food culture that keeps us from chewing. We inhale our food too much, I think. And I think what you're talking about is just as another reason to slow down, to really taste our food, to savor the experience of eating, to really enjoy it, to take time for it. Is that part of your message?
Very much so. As we do that, what we're doing is integrating the intake of the healthiest, freshest, seasonal foods with the least amount of pesticides and processing, and allowing what Mother Nature has imbued into our plants and fruits and vegetables, and taking the time to eat, socialize, which is very much part of the culture of slow eating, and also to be able to chew our food properly. All these steps contributing to get the most out of our life as it relates to diet. So yes, very much so. Part of my message is take the time to eat in order to be able to enjoy your food and allow the food to do its work for you.
When I think about enjoying food and enjoying life, I think about flowers. And people have used edible flowers in salads and in cooking for tens of thousands of years. And in particular, we will often eat borage blossoms or marigold or nasturtium flowers or hibiscus petals or pansies or zucchini blossoms. And bright orange zucchini blossoms. I've seen them sold at farmers markets, and also the flowers of other summer squashes. But I've heard you say that zucchini blossoms are truly exceptional. Will, can you explain that?
Well, zucchini flowers, for anybody who's actually grown zucchini in a garden, you get this beautiful zucchini that you can't wait to cook and eat. But the flowers that come with them are really amazing. Not only are they big flowers, they're kind of like lilies, but they're orange and white and green. They're very attractive, but actually many cultures eat them, and they're found on the seasonal Mediterranean menus. And anybody who has been reading about the Mediterranean diet will know that many things that are coming from that part of the world are really, really healthy. And the zucchini flower or the squash blossom is no exception. Researchers have found a natural chemical called spinasterol that is characteristic of these zucchini flowers. It's a natural bioactive that does something really amazing. When you eat it, it protects our cells against the DNA damage that can come from our environment. In other words, eating a flower changes our cells so that they are more resistant to damage from harmful radiation, from chemicals we might be exposed to, even from stress, the stress of life itself. And these flowers can be prepared in so many different ways. They can be a great addition to salad.
You know, Will, I know that as well as defeating cancer, your organization is very interested in defeating blindness. And I want to talk to you for a moment about lutein. It's a carotenoid that's concentrated in the macula of the retina. Sweet potatoes are starchy vegetables, but they have a very low glycemic index. And the Center for Science in the Public Interest once gave sweet potatoes its highest ranking of all vegetables. And one of the reasons was the high levels of lutein. Would this mean, Will, that eating sweet potatoes with their high lutein content and other vegetables that are high in this bioactive might protect the eyes from age-related macular degeneration, which is the most common form of blindness in the elderly today?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, sweet potatoes are very, very high in lutein and a related compound called zeaxanthin. It's, many studies have actually shown, particularly in people who are over the age of 60, that eating more of these natural compounds actually substantially decreases your risk of developing macular degeneration, which is literally a degeneration of the cells in the retina that help receive light in our central vision. So you can imagine it's hard to imagine a disease that's more terrible in the eye than one that robs us of our central vision. It's kind of like what you see right in front of you. Patients with wet AMD, or the wet form, which is blood vessels growing, they can't read their cell phone. They can't read a newspaper. They can't watch television. You're really isolated and you can't drive, and so you lose your independence. And so what's really rewarding to see coming from the research is that eating foods that are high in lutein and some of these other vitamins and zeaxanthins actually lower the risk of AMD, particularly, for example, in a Mediterranean diet. It's been studied that you can have a 26% reduction in the risk of developing the blinding form of AMD. Now, what's interesting as well is there are some cultures that eat a lot of sweet potatoes. So in Okinawa, which is a small island off the coast of Japan, it's one of the blue zones where people regularly live longer than 100 years old. It turns out that people there eat lots of sweet potato. About 60% of the calorie of the people take in through their diet comes from the sweet potato. So I think the research on eye disease is also going over to Japan to take a look at their benefits. And another food that you had actually mentioned that is high in lutein is avocados. So again, my philosophy is to understand what is good in food. Look at where the evidence is for lowering the risk of cancer and blindness and other conditions, and also to be able to recognize that you can have diversity in your diet. So if you don't like sweet potatoes one day, you might switch over to an avocado. You're still going to get your lutein in. And in fact, it turns out that just a half an avocado can actually has enough of the lutein, other bioactives that can actually reduce the risk of DNA damage that also increases the risk of cancer. So avocado, again, is another food that has a double or multi-barreled approach that can protect your eyes and also protect your body from developing cancer.
As we've been talking about these many different types of vegetables and fruits that are so beneficial, that help us defeat cancer, help us prevent cancer, help us prevent blindness, are health promoting in so many ways across the board, I'm remembering something that the American Institute for Cancer Research declared. They said, and this is a quote, "When it comes to preventing cancer, the research shows one thing very clearly. We all need to eat more plants and less meat." William, does that advice comport with what your research is finding?
Absolutely. It is 100% crystal clear that plant-based foods are more beneficial for us by making that the mainstay of our diet. While meat is part of a diet that some people choose to adopt, even for those people, eating less meat and mostly plants is actually good for us. We know that plants provide healthy fibers, they provide our vitamins, they provide all these other bioactives. And as we've been talking about all the different types of foods that are plant-based, we know that you can actually boost your immune system, you can actually improve your circulation, you can actually feed your gut biome, the healthy gut bacteria, you can protect your DNA, and there's even evidence that some of these plant-based foods can stimulate our stem cells to help our body regenerate, whether it's our heart or our brain or muscles during exercising. And so we also now know that many of these bioactives found in a plant-based diet can protect us against cancer. So if you take a look that, there's 1.7 or more million new cases of cancer every year in the United States. That's a lot of people that need protection. Plant-based diet does that. And in fact, I would say for anybody who eats meat, you need to eat more plants, because we know that there are natural carcinogens that are present in the cooking of meat itself that makes the meat more dangerous. And so how are you going to protect yourself if you don't eat more plants? That's really, I think, the rule of thumb that one should have in developing a healthy diet is plants first.
Will, you're showing us that the tools for cancer prevention are really all around us, in our gardens, in the produce section of our grocery stores, in our farmers markets. And this is deeply empowering to those of us who want to live healthy lives and long lives filled with vitality and mental clarity and see clearly throughout our lives and live with the beauty in our hearts. On behalf of myself and Ocean and everyone involved in the food revolution, Will, I want to thank you for all the ways that your research is helping us to know how we can eat to beat cancer. And of course, for being with us today.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and I really want to encourage your listeners to join our Eat to Beat movement, because only by teaming up as a community, as a global community, do we really share the benefits and really the rewards of eating a plant-based diet. So thank you for the work you do.
Absolutely. We've been talking here with Dr. William Li, founding president of the Angiogenesis Foundation and creator of the Eat to Beat Cancer Initiative, which you can join by clicking on the link right next to this interview if you're on our broadcast page right now. Will, your research and understanding the role of food in cancer protection is exhilarating, and it's bringing grounded hope to all of us. We are so grateful for your research, for your leadership, for your wisdom, and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Li and to my dad and colleague, John Robbins, for that riveting and empowering conversation. I'm loving seeing all the comments people are sharing. So many people are lit up and inspired and filled with hope. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. Make sure to refresh those comments so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Our next presentation will be an interview with Chris Wark. It will start at the top of the hour, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, 4 p.m. GMT, followed by Anthony William at the top of the hour after that. And now I want to share and respond to a few of the comments we've been receiving and also some of my own reflections on what we've been hearing. Regina Stover said, "Dear John and Ocean, I am a first-time listener to the summit, and I have to say I am awestruck and enthralled. I'm so grateful and honored for the invaluable information that's being shared by so many incredible and credible people. I now realize more than ever just that I must make some dietary changes for me and my husband, and more importantly, I must seek the truth about the food choices I'm making. Thank you for all you do. You have changed this woman's life forever." Well, thank you, Regina, for joining us and learning and growing and participating. We are thrilled to have you with us. We heard from Nancy Crabtree, who said, "Awesome news about purple potatoes. As I am living with stage 2A colon cancer, I want to run out and buy up all the purple potatoes I can find. Unfortunately, they aren't easy to find in the stores. Usually can only get white, yellow, or red potatoes. I'm looking into how I might grow them myself." And relatedly, Byron Green asked, "Where can I get purple potatoes?" Well, Nancy and Byron, depending on where you live, purple potatoes and other specific fruits or vegetables you want may or may not be easily accessible. But here are some ideas. Of course, it's true, you can grow things yourself. You may find them at a farmer's market. You might find them at a supermarket or large-scale grocery store. You can actually call ahead rather than driving all over town to ask if they stock certain things. You can also ask to speak with a store produce manager and ask them if they can order any of some specific thing you want. It might take only a few requests like yours for them to decide that there is a demand for them. This is actually how things change sometimes. We heard from Wendy Wiebe, who said, "Thank you for this amazing summit. Despite being a non-smoker, moderate drinker, and fairly healthy individual by North American standards, I was diagnosed with oral squamous cell carcinoma in 2017 at the age of 32. I went through the big three, surgery, chemo, and radiation, and they were horrible. But at the same time, I went extreme with my diet and lifestyle, getting rid of all toxins and replenishing myself with whole, organic foods. My diagnosis is not the only thing that has baffled doctors. My tolerance with treatments and quick recovery from all treatments has surprised every doctor dealing with my case. I attribute this largely to the extreme health approach I have taken to my recovery. This summit gives me more information and tools I need to optimize my health and keep the cancer in remission for good. I have already learned so much and am making more changes in my life as I listen to the wealth of knowledge from these speakers. Thank you so much for this valuable information and for your commitment to improving the health of our world." Thank you, Wendy. Our blessings and love go with you in every step of the journey. Thank you so much for sharing and learning. And now we're going to share a pre-recorded testimonial. This is from Dawn Aragon, a clinical psychologist, acro yogi, and mom from Seattle, Washington. Dawn participated in one of our past Food Revolution summits, and as you're about to hear, it changed her life. Here is her story in her own words.
Hi, everybody. This is Dawn Irene Aragon, co-founder of PrimalTrust.com. I'm a licensed PhD clinical psychologist, certified yoga, acro yoga teacher, and a mom. I'm here to share with you my Food Revolution incredible story. Throughout my teenage years, I struggled with depression off and on and significant struggles around my relationship with food. Despite that, mind over matter, I rocked out my PhD. I was an extreme athlete, triathlete, advanced yogi, endurance horseback racer, until I hit my 40s and had my son. After 2 years of sleepless nights, working full-time, going full bore, I hit a complete wall. I went to my primary care provider. She gave me a powerful benzodiazepine, sent me to every specialist under the sun, with no one who could really help me. No relief whatsoever for any of my symptoms. After 5 years of studying, self-study, trying to figure out how to help myself, I ran across the Food Revolution Summit. I downloaded their information, and there was something really unique about what they had to offer. So I listened and studied avidly what those speakers had to say. I bought the empowerment package and started to really apply the principles that were really new. I had thought I knew everything about nutrition, but this summit really opened my eyes to a new way of self-healing. A year later, I am ecstatic to report I am depression-free for the first time since I can remember. I have transformed my relationship with food in ways that I never imagined possible. My most recent medical exam, my labs were within normal limits or better. I have more vitality, spark for life, joy, happiness, a new relationship that supports me in every way, nourishes me in every way. I encourage you to pay attention, open your heart and mind. The Food Revolution has answers for every single person who's ready. Thank you all so much. Take care. Be well.
And thank you so much to Dawn for sharing that story with us. Yes, the Food Revolution does have answers for every single one of us, and we live them in our own unique ways. You know, wherever you live, whether you're in a cold climate or a warm one, whether it's summer or winter for you right now, whatever your season or life experience, you have the opportunity to participate, to engage, to learn, to grow, and to live this revolution. And we actually don't just do it for ourselves, we do it for our whole community. And the stories we tell also send out incredible ripples. We heard from Teresa Getting, who said, "I was a vegetarian for 23 years, a vegan for the past year. I've been suffering from severe anxiety and panic attacks for 7 years. 5 months ago, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I then changed my diet to a plant-based whole foods diet. I realized I had been a vegan junkie. My A1C went from 11.50 to 4.75 in 4 months. My anxiety started to subside and I lost 30 pounds. I can't always afford to buy organic, but because of your advice on how to remove most of the pesticides, some fruits and vegetables are back on the menu. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Keep up all the good work. Well, Teresa, I want to support you and encourage you to include lots of fruits and vegetables on your menu. Congratulations on making this shift. I'm so glad you're seeing these results, and my guess is that as you go further with it, you're going to see even more results. I want to also suggest that we want to support you with an empowerment package. So we're going to be sending that along to you, and so you will have the MP3s and the transcripts for life. Congratulations. You'll also have more than $2,800 worth of bonuses. I hope they empower you to live this food revolution and keep telling your story as the transformation continues. Congratulations also to all of our most recent new empowerment package owners. Mike from Ontario, Bonnie from Birmingham, Alabama, Robin from Delaware, Paige from Washington, Eben from New Brunswick, Canada, Karama from Florida, Terry from West Virginia, Hazel from Utah, Sandy from Alberta, Canada, Lou from Tennessee. Welcome aboard. We're so glad to have you with us in this food revolution, and congratulations on owning the empowerment package, and thank you for supporting our mission. We're so grateful. As we've been hearing so clearly in this summit, the status quo is a fast track to suffering, chronic illness, food allergies, diabetes, weight challenges, sleep challenges, dementia, and of course cancer. But there are so many breakthroughs taking place. And we're going to hear now about one of them that has been lived so exquisitely by Chris Wark. We're ready now. Here we go. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I'm joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Chris Wark. Chris Wark is a blogger, podcaster, speaker, and global health coach. In 2003, at 26 years old, he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer and was told he had a 60% chance of surviving another 5 years. Using nutrition and natural therapies, he experienced profound healing, and now he remains fully healthy, and he's been sharing his story since 2010. Chris reaches millions of people each year at smoothie bars, health and wellness events, hospitals, churches, culinary schools, conferences, and his wildly popular website, chrisbeatcancer.com. His mission is to help people to take control of their health and reverse disease with a radical transformation of diet and lifestyle. So now, Chris, we're so grateful that we get this time with you. And now for the interview, I'm going to hand it over to my dad, John Robbins.
Well, thank you, Ocean, for that introduction. And thank you, Chris, for being with us.
Hi, John. Hi, Ocean. Great to be with you.
Well, as Ocean was saying, you have had an amazing journey with cancer, and your personal story has inspired a huge number of people. Can you tell our listeners briefly what happened to you and why you decided to go public and tell people all about it?
Yes, happy to tell my story. So I was, when I was 26, I was having abdominal pain, and it was weird pain. It was not like anything I'd ever felt in my body before. And it was sort of a dull aching that would come and go randomly. And sometimes there were these sharp pains. And, I never thought in a million years that there was a cancerous tumor in my body. I thought maybe I had an ulcer or something. And I ignored it for the better part of the year until eventually the pain progressively got worse and worse. I was thinking, well, whatever it is, I'm sure it'll go away or heal up or something. But it got worse, and I had a colonoscopy done, and the doctor found a golf ball-sized tumor in my large intestine, which is also known as the colon for anyone who is not sure what a colon is. It's your large intestine. And from there, it was basically like, look, man, they did a biopsy. They said, you have colon cancer. we got to get this thing out of you as soon as possible before it spreads and kills you.
So they told you got to have surgery right away. What else did they tell you?
So I was told you need surgery right away, and which is very typical. Most cancer patients are rushed into treatment before they have any idea what's happening to them. And I was very much in that category of the typical clueless cancer patient, rushed into surgery. I had surgery. I was diagnosed 2 days before Christmas, which, really sucked.
Merry Christmas. Yeah.
Merry Christmas. You have cancer. And they actually wanted to get me into surgery like right away. And I said, look, this is depressing enough. I'd really prefer not to be in the hospital on Christmas. So we postponed it a week. Had surgery on December 30th. It took out a third of my large intestine, took out the tumor, which was connected to my large intestine, took out a bunch of lymph nodes. And then when I came out of anesthesia and was coming to, they basically said, look, it's worse than we thought. We thought you were probably stage 2. You're not. You're stage 3C, which means it spread to your lymph nodes. You have metastatic colon cancer. And
oh my God. What worst possible news, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the only worst possible would be stage 4. So it was on its way to stage 4, on its way to my liver. But yeah, I mean, it definitely went from bad to worse. And they said, look, the next step for you is 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. And at that point, I was just like, I was on heavy pain medication in the hospital. And it was just like, okay, I guess this is my life now.
And did you then just do what they told you to do?
Well, I initially accepted that whatever they said is what I had to do. Whatever the doctor said, like, okay, they know best and this is what I should be doing. But there were a few things that happened in the hospital that got me thinking differently. And I did have a background in sort of healthy stuff. My mom had always been a health nut and shopped at health food stores when I was a kid. And I worked at Wild Oats briefly in college. So I knew what health, I knew there was a world of health and nutrition that existed. I wasn't eating that way. I was eating a standard American diet, tons of junk food and fast food, tons of animal products every day. Your typical American's eating animal food 3 times a day. It's crazy. Back then, I just thought it was normal. So the first thing that happened in the hospital that was so strange, and I love to tell this part of the story, is the very first meal that they served me after cutting out a third of my large intestine. This is major abdominal surgery, right? They took out a section of my guts, sewed them back together, and sewed me back together, and then brought me my first meal to eat. And the meal was a sloppy Joe.
Oh my.
Yeah, the sloppy Joe, which, Americans all know what a sloppy Joe is, but what you probably haven't thought about is that sloppy Joes, nobody likes sloppy Joes. I mean, they don't serve them in restaurants. The only place you can really get a sloppy Joe is like summer camp, maybe if you're in the Army or prison. So, and apparently, if you're in the hospital with cancer, then you can also get yourself a sloppy Joe. So they set it in front of me, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't understand. Why are they serving this to me, the sick person in the hospital? And the answer is pretty obvious. They don't care about nutrition. They're just looking for cheap food. And the sloppy Joe is like one of the cheapest industrial meals you can concoct. So that was red flag number 1. That got me, I kind of realized there was a disconnect between health and healthcare, right? The healthcare industry had very little regard for healthy eating, for nutrition.
Even when the cancer is in your intestinal tract.
Yeah, well, and that's the craziest thing of all, is that colon cancer is known to be caused by processed meat and red meat. And the first meal they serve me after cutting out the colon tumor is red meat. I mean, it's just laughable how clueless the medical industry is and was at that time. And so that happened, and I did eat it, by the way. I wasn't, I was just like hungry and whatever. Okay. And then the other thing that happened in the hospital was my last day. The surgeon came in to check on me, and we were just having a conversation about what to expect going forward. And I was a little bit concerned. I didn't want to eat the wrong thing and mess up the surgery. Everything you eat passes through your intestines, so I didn't want to eat can I eat spicy food? Is that going to melt the stitches? Or are Doritos too sharp? What can I eat? And is there any food I'm not supposed to eat? And he said, no, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
Oh my, I want to hear the rest of your story, but parenthetically, I want to say that in hospitals and in cancer clinics today, right at this very moment, doctors are telling cancer patients, you can eat whatever you want. Just make sure you get enough calories. That's their usual concern. I've had cancer patients tell me that their oncologists have told them that they should eat ice cream and milkshakes.
Yes.
And Chris, how do you feel about physicians giving this kind of advice?
Well, that's absolutely 100% accurate. There may be a few exceptions, but by and large, cancer patients are told, eat whatever you want. Yes, eat high calorie foods, ice cream, milkshakes, pizza, burgers, French fries, eat whatever you want. And the underlying message is it's almost criminally negligent, because the message underneath that permission to eat whatever you want is that there's nothing you did to contribute to your disease. Therefore, there's nothing you can do to help yourself, right? You become completely dependent and powerless. You're powerless to help yourself, and you're dependent on the medical industry to save you. And without them, you literally have no hope. A lot of patients want to know, the first thing you think is well, how did I get cancer, right? Well, how did this happen to me? Why do I have cancer? What caused this? And it's almost always the pat on the head. There's nothing you did. It's not you. You're just unlucky, or it might be genetic, right? Two things that, again, render you powerless to change.
I would imagine for someone just diagnosed with cancer to be told there's nothing you did that caused this might be, in the short term, might feel reassuring, consoling, soothing, take them off the hook in a way. But at the same time, in the medium and long term, it is disempowering, because it is preventing them from knowing what they can do now to help heal, to help prevent a recurrence, and what others can do to help to prevent them from being in that position in the first place.
It's just criminally negligent, like I said earlier, to not tell a cancer patient that the way they're living contributed to their disease. Yeah, I get it. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them feel bad, but you're doing them an injustice and a disservice by not telling them the truth.
So there you were. You're in the hospital eating your sloppy Joe,
Yeah.
and your surgeon visits you and says, "Eat whatever you want. It doesn't matter." And they're also telling you you're going to do 6 months to a year or something like that of chemo, and you're thinking that's probably what's in store for you. What happened next?
Next thing was I go home, and I'm recovering. Basically the first week or so I was just sleeping on the couch because it was hard to get up and down, and just kind of eating, whatever I wanted to eat, and not really doing anything. I was still on pretty heavy pain medication. Anyway, I had this instinctive urge to get off the pain pills, and as I sobered up, I was just thinking about my life and my future and my condition and how much time do I have left? I was a newlywed, and am I going to have a family, or what's my life going to be? And the thought of chemotherapy and the idea of poisoning my way back to health really didn't make sense to me. I knew what it did to cancer patients because I'd seen some of them out there in the world. It's shocking how just how destructive the treatments are, and how emaciated and just absolutely sick they become. from the treatment.
Well, chemotherapy is debilitating. It is toxic. There's no question about that. But in some cases, the belief is it's effective. And that's what you were being told. This is your only hope. This is what we need to do.
Right. So I had this conflict, and I just felt so weak and so vulnerable that I couldn't imagine like putting something into my body that would make me even more weak and sick and vulnerable. But I didn't have any other ideas, right? I was like, I don't know what else to do. And I'm a Christian. My wife and I, we prayed together. I just said, God, I don't know what to do. If there's another way besides chemotherapy, just please show me. And 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a friend of my dad's. I get this book and I start reading it. And then the guy who wrote it had discovered he had colon cancer back in the 1970s and had seen a lot of people around him suffer and die, including his own mother, from cancer treatment. And he thought, well, I'm definitely not doing that. And he happened to have a friend who said, man, you need to get on a raw food diet. And so this guy gets on a raw food diet, starts juicing carrots and just commits to it 100%. And a year later, his cancer's gone. And I'm reading his story and I'm just like, this is exactly what I need to do. There's just no doubt in my mind. The idea of only eating fruits and vegetables, it was so strange, but I was fascinated by it. Because I thought, I've never even heard of this, but it makes so much sense. Like you're just eating food straight from the earth, organic, of course. And like, what would happen to my body if I just started overdosing on nutrition, like just pumping as much fruits and vegetables in there as I possibly could every day. Juicing is a big part of that. And I just got really excited. I was like, this is it. I prayed, I asked for something, this showed up, this is it. And I called my wife and I was like, probably talking 90 miles an hour, trying to like tell her about this book and, all this kind of stuff. And she was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're still doing chemo, right? And I'm like, I don't think I want to do chemo. And so the conversation didn't end well. And then family members start calling me immediately and saying, we heard you're thinking about not doing chemo. And you've got to do what the doctor says. I know somebody who tried alternative therapies and they died, right? So I'm getting all these messages like, don't you think if there was something better, they would know about it? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm only 3 chapters into this book. So I didn't know how to answer those questions, and there was so much pressure to just do what the doctor said that, I agreed just to appease the people around me. So we go to this cancer clinic and it was such a strange day. I mean, the parking lot was packed, the waiting room was packed, they were busy. And I walked in there and sat down and looked around and everyone in the waiting room was like 2-3 times my age. Like I'm 26 and everybody in there is 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And I'm just thinking, God, I don't belong here. And the TV's on. We're waiting to go back. And out comes Jack LaLanne on one of the morning shows.
Oh my. What a quote coincidence, unquote.
Yeah. I mean, it was just divine, right? It was just absolutely divine, like moment where Jack LaLanne comes out and he starts going off about nutrition. And he's saying, this is the reason we're all so sick is because we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. We're eating too much man-made food and processed food. And if man made it, don't eat it. And and I turned to my wife and I was like, can you believe this is on right now? And she was like, that's pretty weird. And so then we go back and see the oncologist and he just gives me this standard boilerplate, spiel, right? He says, look, you've got stage 3 colon cancer. You've got a 60% chance of living 5 years with treatment. It's very aggressive in young adults. So you definitely have to do treatment. So I'd been on a raw food diet for a week, and I asked him, I said, what about the raw food diet? And he said, no, you can't do that. It'll fight the chemo. And I thought, it must be pretty good. Fights the chemo. What does that even mean? Well, turns out they don't want you to eat raw food, like raw fruit, if you're on chemo, because chemotherapy destroys your immune system. And now all of a sudden, a harmless bacteria on an apple or some grapes is now potentially a problem in your body because you don't have any defenses. The other thing about the raw food diet is it causes rapid detoxification. So chemotherapy doesn't work very well when you're on a raw food diet, because your body recognizes it as so completely foreign and toxic that it kind of kicks it out faster than they wanted to. I asked him if there were any alternative therapies available, and he said, no, there are none. If you don't do chemo, you're insane.
Oh my. How did you feel? How did you feel when he said that?
John, I mean, I at that moment, his demeanor changed dramatically, and he just turned the screw. You know what I mean? And it was like the knob on the stereo that was marked fear, and he just cranked it up, and all of a sudden it was just like, I just felt like, when you're afraid, your stress hormones start pumping, you kind of get the tunnel vision, and that's exactly what was happening. He was talking to me, and I wasn't even hearing what he was saying, but he was just kind of talking down to me and doing his best to convince me that I had to do chemo or I was going to die.
It sounds as though he was intimidating you, actually.
Oh, absolutely intimidating me. I don't know what he sensed, but he goes, he just thought he would say this, maybe it would help. And he says, look, I'm not saying this because I need your business.
Methinks it doth protest too much.
Yeah, exactly. And, in the moment, I was like, oh, that was kind of weird. Oh, that's a weird thing to say. Like, what does business have to do with it, right? And then later, upon reflection, I realized, like, man, this is a business. I'm a customer. I'm worth, what I learned later, at least $300,000 in revenue from treatments. But sometimes treatments run over $1 million for patients, and you've got surgery, chemo, radiation, office visits. For breast cancer, you've got breast reconstruction, you got nipple tattoos, you got the wig industry. I mean, the cancer industry is vast. A vast money-making, multi-billion dollar industry. So hundreds of billions a year. So he said that, and even though he said raw food diet will fight the chemo, you don't do chemo, you're insane. I'm not saying this because I need your business. I said, said these weird things. I was so afraid that I got up, finished our meeting, walked straight to the desk, and made an appointment to start chemotherapy in a few weeks, right? Because fear just took over. Like, I was completely intimidated, manipulated by fear.
And I'm hearing you had a lot of family members exerting pressure in the same direction. A lot of people in your situation would have done exactly what you did at that point, that far anyway.
Yes, most people do. And so at that point, my wife and I left, we sat in her car and we just cried and held hands and prayed. And I had gone into that clinic full of hope and optimism and feeling good and full of faith. And that meeting just pretty much shattered my faith. And I just walked out of there and with just a very heavy sense of hopelessness and fear. And so that was tough. Now, fortunately for me, I had weeks to process all of this. Some cancer patients are rushed right in. I mean, they got them into chemo a day or two after their diagnosis. And like, they had no time. And I had weeks because I was still recovering from the surgery. So during that time, I kept the raw food diet going, kept juicing, kept reading and researching. I kept praying like crazy and just like looking for answers and confirmation because, I was just so confused. So the day comes when I'm supposed to go get the port put in, And, I woke up that morning and I was just like, no, not doing it. I thought it through and I thought, I want to take my chances radically changing my life and taking control of my health and overdosing on nutrition. That makes sense to me. And chemo can be a last resort. If I can't get well, my body cannot heal. If I can't prevent this recurrence that they're telling me is basically a almost certainty, then I'll always have chemo. And I didn't go to the appointment. And then the cancer clinic starts calling my house and, leaving messages on the answering machine, even sent me a certified letter. Like, I had to sign. The postman's like knocking on the door. I have to sign for this letter. I'm like, what's happening? Like suing me? And the letter's like, Mr. Wark, please call the doctor immediately. We're concerned about your health, this kind of thing. And after that, I guess they're like, well, we sent him a letter and he signed for it. So now we're off the hook. And they left me alone. And I found a nutritionist, a naturopathic doctor locally who connected me with sort of an underground integrative oncologist. It's just an amazing man. His name is Dr. Roy Page. He's now deceased, but he just had this renewed vigor and enthusiasm about helping patients with, non-toxic therapies and trying to help improve their immune systems, because he understood that the immune system was key to healing cancer and to preventing cancer. So he was a huge ally. So I slowly kind of built a support system around myself. And I have to say, my mom was a supporter of me in the beginning. She, like I said earlier, she was, shopped at health food stores when I was a kid, and she had amassed this huge library of books on natural health, alternative health, nutrition, the raw food diet. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I was looking for, I would hear about an author or read about something and I'd ask her about it. She'd have it. I mean, she had books by Fred Klenner and Linus Pauling on vitamin C. She had Ralph Moss's Questioning Chemotherapy. She had a cancer battle plan, books about SEACT. It was just crazy. She had all these books that I wanted to read all of a sudden. So that was another mini miracle in the journey, is that my mom had been storing up all these books for me. She'd never had cancer, never had any health problems. She just was a voracious reader and was, sort of an early 1970s health nut. So, kind of like you, John.
Right? Yes, I've read many of the books you just mentioned.
Yeah. So then, from there, things got a little better because people had sort of accepted, well, Chris is going to do what he wants to do. And they kind of left me alone. And I just went hardcore. And I was juicing 5 pounds of carrots every morning, along with beetroot, celery, ginger, making about 64 ounces of vegetable juice and drinking that all day, about between 8 to 12 ounces at a time, right? But drinking 64 ounces of vegetable juice every day. I was making giant salads, which were loaded with the most potent anti-cancer vegetables, the cruciferous family and the allium family. So it's broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, garlic, onions, leeks, peppers, sauerkraut, and then putting oregano and red pepper, cayenne, turmeric, curry powder, I was just loading this thing up and using a little olive oil and apple cider vinegar to dress it, and concocted this delicious salad that I ate every day for lunch and dinner. It's the same thing every day because, nothing can beat a giant bowl full of vegetables in terms of nutritional, variety and having sort of comprehensive nutrition, right? You just a huge bowl full of vegetables, as many as you can get in there. And I was also putting like nuts and seeds on there and sprouting garbanzo beans and lentils and all kinds of stuff, just cramming as much into my body as I could.
So this is your chemo-free cancer battle you're underway. You're eating this huge cancer-fighting salad twice a day and drinking loads of fresh vegetable juice every day. And you're wanting to put as many vitamins and minerals and nutrients and enzymes into your body as possible. I read somewhere that you said there's no secret formula to this salad, just lots and lots of fruits and vegetables, and particularly the cruciferous veggies. Um, but you did have one rule, which was absolutely no cheese, no meat, or no store-bought salad dressing.
Right. So the strategy was to only eat organic produce in its natural state from the earth, right? So only eat it raw and make sure it's organic. The organic is to prevent any ingestion of pesticides, herbicides, stuff like that, chemicals that are sprayed on food. And then I cut out all animal food because there have been multiple studies leading the consumption of animal products to the development, not only causing, but to feeding cancer. And so, I eliminated all animal protein. The hormones in meat and dairy fuel cancer growth, not to mention other factors. So just to touch on it briefly, meat and dairy raise IGF-1, that's insulin-like growth factor, which is a hormonal response in the body that fuels cancer growth. Cancer loves IGF-1. Red meat especially raises your blood iron, your heme iron, which is not good because cancer loves iron. Iron fuels cancer growth. And so excessive iron is problematic. And then the hormones, the other hormones in meat and dairy, fuel cancer growth. And then there's this really specific amino acid, methionine, that fuels cancer growth. And methionine is basically absent in fruit, and it's extremely low in vegetables, but it's much, much higher in meat and dairy. So there are all these reasons that some of them I learned in the beginning and others I've learned over years of research why animal food was not conducive to healing cancer. So, and then the processed food, right? I eliminated anything processed, anything man-made, anything from a factory with additives, preservatives, sugar, salt, any of that kind of stuff. It was just off limits. And so store-bought salad dressing was another one. Although now there are some that even like the Bragg salad dressing, I think is great. But at the time, I just became a pretty hardcore purist about what I put in my body because it was life or death to me.
It was life or death. And you were deviating from the protocols that the culture says is what you're supposed to do. Your family members are saying it's what you're supposed to do, although I get your mother was a little bit supportive there. And somehow, what happened next?
Somehow I lived.
Because here you are.
Yeah.
It's now 15 years later.
That's right.
And so what happened?
So I do have to say that, so the diet was a huge part, and I was raw for 90 days, and then working with my nutritionist, we backed it down to about 80% raw, 20% cooked. So, and that was just because, and cooked vegetables are not bad. And there was a little bit of a stigma in the raw community that if it's cooked, then it destroys all the nutritional value. And that's not true. But cooked food helped me, especially the starches like sweet potatoes and quinoa and brown rice, helped me put some weight back on because I'd gotten really, really skinny. The other things I did were just as important because I started exercising. And exercise is so powerful for cancer prevention and healing. It's one of the most underrated things you can do for yourself. And it costs you nothing, right? You can exercise for free. You can run, you can walk, you can skip, you can do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, like karate, make up your own karate. It just doesn't even matter what you do. But if you're moving your body, you're breaking a sweat, you're getting your heart pumping, your blood pumping, and you're switching on genes that are protective against cancer. There are certain pollutants and contaminants that are much more effectively detoxified when you sweat. So sweat is wonderful, and sweaty exercise, I think, is the best combo of both. And then I was getting fresh air and sunshine, and then I really started to look internally. When I really stepped back and looked at my life, I realized that I was a very kind of stressful guy. I was very driven to be successful. I had, sort of a chip on my shoulder, and I was very competitive and easily envious and jealous of others. And I was also, insecure, just a very insecure person. And that led me to be critical and judgmental of others, and even just an unhappy person. Even though I was always laughing and loved to have a good time and all that kind of thing, I really struggled a lot just with wrestled with insecurity and negativity, and I allowed those kind of thoughts and emotions to circulate in my mind. And I realized, wow, if I've become a person who emotionally and physically, right, is friendly to cancer. And maybe cancer is a physical manifestation of an emotional and mental sickness.
Chris, when you talk about maybe cancer is, at least to some degree, a manifestation of an emotional malaise or illness, I have a relative who does not eat a particularly healthful diet and who is living with a cancer diagnosis. And she said something to me that I think is important. She said, look, I can't green juice away my childhood resentments, and I can't gluten-free away my heartbreak. And when she said that, I felt two things. First, I have a lot of respect for her effort to use her diagnosis as a doorway to heal her deep-seated traumas and pain. A lot of respect for the courage to face that emotional trauma. And I also felt something else, which was that eating a healthful diet could help her. Eating consciously can give us the energy and the mental clarity to address our emotional issues. It can lighten our toxic burden. It can reduce our physical pain. And it can support the emotional healing that we need to do. So I don't see it as an either-or choice. Either you face your traumas and your resentments and your heartbreak, or you eat better. Actually, I think that if you eat better, you'll be more able to heal what needs healing on every level of your being.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. And there's a few different dimensions to healthy eating. I'd say the most superficial level is we know that these nutrients feed our cells, right? And they give vitamins and minerals, enzymes, and all these phytonutrients, thousands of plant-based compounds, and your body's built out of what you eat. So it only makes sense that this is going to help you. But what I found is, the raw food diet and even a plant-based diet is such a dramatic shift away from the standard Western diet, the standard American diet, that if I can convince a person to do that, I feel like it unlocks something in their brain where they realize, wow, if I can do this, what else can I do? Right? And they start when they make that radical change in their diet, then they start looking at other aspects of their life that also need radical change, just like I did. And one of those areas, like, you mentioned, was that, did you say your sister? Who was it?
No, it's a relative.
Relative, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's right. You can't, gluten-free away pain, but what you can and must do to heal is forgive. And forgiveness has become such a huge part of my life and part of my, ministry and message and mission is to help people forgive, because bitterness and unforgiveness are essentially the root cause of almost every disease. Because when you hold on to that negativity and that anger and that heartbreak and that bitterness, it rots you from the inside out. It gives you a sick heart. If you have a sick heart, you're going to have a sick body, right? So this is something that I figured out in the process, and I was like, wow, if unforgiveness and bitterness and resentment is that powerful to hurt me, then I'm going to start forgiving everybody like crazy. Like, let me just do some soul searching and search the memory banks, go back as far as I can remember into my childhood, and forgive every person who's ever hurt me. And so I just prayerfully would kind of go through these exercises where I just, sit down and close my eyes and just think through my life and let people come up, that have hurt me. So I let those memories come up, and just one by one, I just say, God, you know what they did, and you know how I feel about it, but I'm choosing to forgive them. I'm letting it go, and I'm giving them to you. They're all yours, right? I'm not going to carry it anymore. They're all yours. And I'm just asking you to bless them. I think that's the most powerful thing you can do is pray and, ask God to bless the people who've hurt you, because I just feel like it unlocks something in your heart that allows the healing to happen. Most people say, I'll forgive them when they're sorry, right? Or I'm not ready to forgive. Or I'll forgive them when they get what they deserve. Then I'll forgive them. But the truth is, they may never get what they deserve, and they may never be sorry. And the only person that's hurt by your bitterness and your resentment is you. It's hurting you. It isn't hurting them at all. And so you don't forgive for them. You forgive for you.
Well, a lot of us will feel that if we forgive someone who's damaged us badly, we're kind of letting them off the hook. We're letting them get away with it. And there's a saying, I think you'll resonate to this, that not forgiving is like drinking rat poison and waiting for the rat to die.
Exactly. Like drinking poison and hoping it hurts someone else. And that's absolutely true. And whether, when you forgive someone, it doesn't let them off the hook, but you're making a choice to not hold it against them, right? You're giving them to God. And whether you believe in Christianity or not, I think we all pretty much agree that what goes around comes around. The principle of the law of the harvest, that you reap what you sow, or karma, that if you project negativity and evil in the world, is going to come back on you. So this person is going to get what they deserve, right? For their bad behavior. That. And so if that helps to be able to let it go, then fine. But the point is, you just say, I'm not going to hold it against them. I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to ask God to bless them. And it's amazing what happens in your life, in your mind, in your spirit. You just feel the weight come off when you do that. It's like you're carrying a backpack full of bricks and you just shrug it off and it drops to the ground. That's what forgiveness feels like. And it's powerful, man.
Well, it seems to me that if you forgive, you do the emotional work, you see where you're holding on to resentments, try to let them go, you ask the people in your life be blessed. All of these things, to me, coincide and become more powerful when you are making lifestyle changes, when you are exercising, when you are eating higher vibration, higher frequency, higher nutrition foods.
It's absolutely right. It all works together.
When we do the emotional work, that's ours to do. When we face and release the resentments, the anger, the bitterness that has built up inside us, the poisons really that have built up inside us, we're doing the healing work. And sometimes that leads to a cancer reversal, to a cancer cure. Other times it doesn't. But in either case, there is healing taking place.
Yeah.
There is personal growth taking place. There is a kind of enlightenment taking place. There is a more light in our bodies, more light in our minds, more light that we have to share with others, more light in our souls. And I think if cancer can evoke that kind of a response in us to address these issues, and to change everything in our life that we can, to exercise, to eat well, to forgive, to care about others, to be in service in ways that we can, to give our gifts, to grow, then we are using the life experience that we have been given to its optimal benefit.
And you said it so well. And I want to finish my story just so we don't leave people hanging.
Absolutely.
The spoiler is I didn't die. I guess they kind of figured that one out pretty early on. But the one little sort of button I want to put on the forgiveness thing is, because it would be remiss if I didn't say it, is that forgiveness is a lot like a healthy diet, because a healthy diet, which we agree is a plant-based diet, but a healthy diet only helps you if you stick with it, right? If you just have a giant salad for lunch and then you go back to burgers and pizza, it didn't help you, okay? And forgiveness is the same way. So that's super important, because forgiveness is a muscle and you got to exercise it. And the more you exercise it and the more quick you are to forgive people. Because people are going to hurt you and they're going to let you down and disappoint you in the future. That's just the human experience. It's life. But if you make a commitment to just be quick to forgive and choose to think the best about people, it makes you happier as a person. So anyway, comprehensive life change is what I went through. And over a period of years of just sticking with this, just day in, day out, sticking with hardcore fruits and vegetables, juicing, and doing, every therapy I could find and afford, which wasn't that much in Memphis, but vitamin C IV therapy, tons of supplementation, doing as much as I could, and then monitoring my blood work and getting a few CT scans along the way. We just, with every report, my blood work was getting better. My CTs kept coming back clean. And it just, before I knew it, it was 5 years. And the oncologist is like, man, I think you're in the clear. And then, around the 6-year mark, I was like, man, okay, well, I didn't die, didn't come back. Maybe I should tell my story. I'm sure there's got to be people out here that I can encourage, with what I've gone through. And that's when I started, Chris Beat Cancer, the blog. And little did I know, here we are 7 years later, after I started the blog, that it would be my full-time mission and ministry and my life's work. I just thought at the time it was just a part-time passion. And then it just really grew into something way bigger than me. And the greatest joy of doing what I do is being able to share other people's healing stories. And so there's tons of interviews on the site with people that have healed cancer, all types, all stages. And it's just so much fun for me. And every time I find and meet someone who was healed, either without treatment or after treatment failed, and they were sent home to die, like that just keeps me so fired up and so motivated just to share this with the world. Because, like we said right in the beginning of our talk, cancer patients are, for the most part, led to believe that they're powerless. And that is such a lie. It's such a deception. And whether a patient chooses conventional or not, or some combination of conventional and alternative, there's so much you can do to help yourself heal. And so my big message is to encourage people to take control of their life. Like, you can get better, you can heal, but you have to be willing to change everything. And you got to be willing to forgive.
15 years ago, when you first got the diagnosis and were rushed into surgery, and then they were pushing chemo pretty aggressively. You mentioned that I think it was someone in your family who said, don't you think if there was something better than chemo, they would know about it?
Yeah.
And at the time, you didn't have an answer to that. How would you answer that now?
Yeah, wow. Thank you, John. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's a fun question to answer. Well, it's pretty simple. There are 100,000 nutritional science studies published each year around the world. 100,000 studies published every year. And I'd say 99% of them, maybe more, are ignored by the medical and pharmaceutical industry because there's no way to monetize that information. So there's no way to monetize the fact that the cruciferous vegetable family and the allium family, right, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, garlic, and onions, are the most powerful anti-cancer vegetables. There's no way to monetize the fact that berries are the most powerful anti-cancer fruit. And so all of this amazing studies exist. You can find them on PubMed. You can just absolutely go insane down the rabbit hole of nutritional science and anti-cancer compounds in food. And yet we may never see any of that incorporated into cancer treatment because there's no money in it.
You wrote an article titled "The Top 10 Anti-Cancer Vegetables," in which you discussed a remarkable study, in which the researchers studied the cancer-fighting effects of 34 different vegetable extracts on 8 different tumor cell lines. Can you tell us about that study and why it's important?
Yeah, that's such a great study, and that I've alluded to it just in what I said a minute ago. That's a study where they dripped the cruciferous vegetable family juices like broccoli juice and garlic juice and cauliflower juice onto 8 different types of cancers in the lab. And what they found was the number one anti-cancer vegetable with the most cancer-killing power that actually killed, just like dramatically killed cancer cells in the lab was garlic. So garlic is number one. It's the number one anti-cancer food. Number two, largely were onions and leeks. They kind of, depending on the type of cancer, they're like number 2 and 3 in the top 10. And then the rest of the top 10 are your cruciferous broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage type stuff. And then even spinach and beets were in there too. And so that was such an exciting study for me to find, because those were all the foods that I was eating every day that I had read were really good against cancer, but this was before that study had even come out. And so it was a really cool validator for me to just start to piece together, like, why did this work? Because I've been criticized as being lucky. Like, that's why I survived, because I was lucky. And I think that's funny, because luck is not a scientific word at all. Like, it has no place in a scientific discussion. We live in a cause and effect world. We know every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and everything that happens has a cause. And so getting to the bottom of the cause can be a challenge, but seeing these really cool anti-cancer nutrition studies are so exciting and so empowering, because and that's what I try to do, is just share these studies with people on the blog and in videos on YouTube and stuff like that, because when that light bulb goes off, like, whoa, wait a second. I've never heard this. They don't talk about this on the news. My doctor didn't say anything about this. My doctor didn't tell me garlic was the most powerful anti-cancer vegetable and basically eradicates cancer cells in the lab. Maybe I should eat more garlic.
There's one other study I'd like to ask you about. You had colon cancer. And this is a fascinating study that's been nicknamed the African diet swap. And it begins with the remarkable fact that the per capita rate of colon cancer in African Americans is more than 16 times higher than it is among Africans in rural South Africa. You've written an article about this titled, "Eat Like an African and Drop Your Cancer Risk in 2 Weeks."
Yeah.
Chris, can you tell us about that study and why you wrote about it and why it's important?
Yeah, I love this study so much. And back in the 1950s and 60s, there was a doctor and a researcher named Dr. Dennis Burkitt who first reported that the rural Africans had virtually no colon cancer, heart disease, breast cancer. Most of the common cancers and common Western diseases, including diabetes, were absent in the rural Africans. And he spent much of his later years in life doing epidemiological research and studying people groups like this that were not exposed to the Western diet. They were eating a diet that was very simple, of whole food from the earth, basically a plant-based diet, very little meat and dairy, almost no processed food or junk food or anything like that. And in terms of colon cancer, this really great study was published a few years ago, where they took a group of rural Africans and a group of African Americans, and they swapped their diets. So the African Americans, they had them eat like rural Africans, which was like beans, peas, lentils, corn, whole grains, very little animal food, of course, no processed food. And then they took the rural Africans and they gave them the African Americans diet, which is tons of meat and dairy, processed food and sugar, salt, stuff like that. And they even laid out the whole meal plans and all this stuff for what they fed everybody. And in just 2 weeks, the amount of inflammatory pro-cancerous markers in the rural Africans shot up. And because they were eating the Americans' diet. And for the African Americans that they put on the rural Africans' diet, all of the inflammatory pro-cancer markers had a dramatic decrease in just 2 weeks. And, again, it wasn't my conclusion. It was the study's conclusion that they dropped their risk of cancer by 50% in just 2 weeks.
So you're saying that a change in diet for the African Americans from a typical Western diet to a traditional African high fiber, low fat, low animal product, mostly plant-based, natural foods, no processed foods, reduced these biomarkers for cancer risk within 2 weeks. That's a remarkably short period of time to see such dramatic changes.
It is.
And one of the lessons I draw from this, I want to see if you do or if this is your feeling, is that in most cases, it's really never too late to change your diet in order to lower your risk of colon cancer, no matter how old you are, no matter how long you've been doing what has been bad for you. And that's really a hopeful message, if that is in fact accurate.
Hugely hopeful that you can dramatically impact your health in a very short time with a radical diet change in as little as 2 weeks. And I always say, look, give it 90 days. I mean, it's amazing how much you can change your body, your energy, everything with 90 days on a plant-based diet. I mean, it's just incredible. But the changes start happening within just a few weeks. And so it's like, man, and it's not just colon cancer, right? I mean, your whole body's made out of what you eat. And so when you start eating different things, you start rebuilding your body with new raw materials. Your body's a perpetual construction site. And what you put in your mouth is what you're made of. You know, you are what you eat. No, yes, that's right. You are what you ate. That's what you're made of. So rebuilding your body, building a new body with the highest quality raw materials, I mean, doesn't that sound like a good idea?
If you are what you ate, then you will be what you're eating now.
Right. Yep.
You know, this is a very, very hopeful message that you're giving us, and your life evidences that. Chris, your story is really an inspiring one, and you're a living testimony to the truth that excellent nutrition and forgiveness can not just greatly reduce our cancer risk, but they can also play an important role in healing from it.
Yes. John, I mean, it's such a thrill and such a privilege to share my story with you and with your audience. And I'm just such a huge fan of your work and Ocean, and it's just great to be aligned with you and trying to help the world.
Well, thank you, Chris. And on behalf of Ocean and myself and everyone involved in the food revolution and the food awakening that's taking place today, I thank you for your courage, your wisdom, your humility. And I thank you for sharing your story so honestly and for being with us today.
My pleasure, John.
We've been talking with Chris Wark, founder of ChrisBeatCancer.com, and a leader in the use of diet and lifestyle to prevent and reverse cancer and to enhance health and vitality. Chris, when you faced life-threatening cancer, you made an unconventional choice. And in doing so, and in sharing your story and your insights so openly, you've opened doorways and brought powerful insights and hope to so many people. We want to thank you for your courage, for your heart, for your wisdom, and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Thank you so much, Ocean.
Thank you so much to Chris Wark and to my dad and colleague John Robbins for that profound conversation. To express your opinions on what you're hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. Make sure to refresh the comments so you can see the most recent ones other people are sharing. Our next presentation will be an interview with best-selling medical medium author Anthony William. It will start at the top of the hour in approximately 3 minutes. Ken Gould said, "Chris is a real hero of the movement. I watch him on YouTube and he helps many on their journey." Barbara Dunn said, "Love Chris Wark. He has helped me so much." Andrea Singletary said, "I just broke down crying. My father had colon cancer my whole life and died when I was 9. I have been going to a doctor since December because I myself, at 32, am having stomach problems and yeast issues, and I can't afford a colonoscopy. I don't want to be like my father, bedridden for 10 years. Thank you for empowering me. I didn't know red meat could cause colon cancer, but I eat the standard American diet. Now that's changing because of this information. I bought heirloom seeds yesterday to plant. Well, Andrea, we send our love and our prayers to you, and we're so sorry about the suffering you endured losing your dad so early. And we are so glad that you are planting seeds, not just plant seeds, but also seeds of hope and possibility for your life. We heard from Tina Falaska, who said, Cleveland Clinic just closed the McDonald's in their facility. My brother, who has since died of colon cancer, was told to eat milkshakes and pizza by his oncologist. This is crazy. Yes, Tina, it is crazy. The average physician in all their years of medical training gets 19 hours of nutritional education. Not long ago, I went to a doctor for what I feared might be a strep infection. It turned out to just be a sore throat, but my doctor wanted to prescribe antibiotics. When I asked him how the antibiotics would impact my microbiome and whether he recommended any probiotics to help rebuild my digestive tract if I did take the medicine, he told me he didn't know anything about that. He said his wife had taken an online nutrition class, and maybe she would be a better resource for me. I'll be honest with you, I was a little shocked. We all know that food is the foundation of health, but our medical industry, for the most part, treats it like a side issue. For anyone listening right now who has a doctor that you want to share this message with, I have a suggestion. You can give them a link to this summit, or get them an empowerment package, or get one yourself and share some of the interviews with them. Speaking of which, we want to give an empowerment package to Shannon Zafaresi, who said, thanks for the important work you do. This summit has been so great. I'm so excited by these interviews. I have several friends who are struggling with cancer right now, and I'm praying they will look to food and other healing methods, and I'm hoping some of what I learned today will help them. Well, we hope that's true. Thank you so much, and congratulations. Coming up next, starting in a few moments, we'll have an interview with Anthony William. Since his early childhood, Anthony describes having the ability to converse with what he calls a high-level spirit, giving him access to unique health and medical insights. Many doctors come to him with their most difficult cases. Recently, I had a friend who was battling with a serious health issue. Her doctors were completely flummoxed. In one reading, Anthony was able to diagnose the problem and tell her how to solve it. She implemented his suggestions, and they worked. Whether you believe in psychic phenomena or not, and whatever you think of it, I think you'll find it interesting to hear what Anthony William has to say about food. So now it's time for our interview with Anthony William. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Anthony William. In this summit, the majority of our speakers are medical doctors and researchers. We put a lot of stock in the findings from health studies undertaken with rigorous methodology and published in the most credible and prestigious peer-reviewed medical journals. At the same time, we recognize that not everything that's meaningful and important can be measured and analyzed. Sometimes dreams and intuition bring us wisdom that can even galvanize new fields of scientific research. So it's with great respect for science and the scientific method that we are today entering into an interview that lies more in the realm of wonder and imagination, intuition, and inspiration. Since the age of 4, Anthony William has had a unique intuitive ability to read people's conditions and to help them to recover their health. His unprecedented accuracy has earned him the trust of thousands of people worldwide, including moving stars, rock stars, billionaires, professional athletes, best-selling authors, and people from all walks of life who have experienced profound, often stunning healing from the insights that he's shared. He's become an invaluable resource for doctors who need help solving some of their most difficult cases. Some might question the legitimacy or accuracy of what is sometimes referred to as psychic powers. But whether you believe in them or not, A lot of our participants will no doubt be curious what insights and wisdom Anthony can share with the rest of us. What does he know or see in regards to food and health? And what can we learn from it? Anthony is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of many books, including Life-Changing Foods, Save Yourself and the Ones You Love with the Hidden Healing Power of Fruits and Vegetables. So now, Anthony, my dad and I are so excited to have this time with you. And now for the interview, I'm going to hand it to my dad, John Robbins.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, Ocean, and thank you, Anthony, for being with us today.
It's a great honor. It truly is. So exciting. Thank you for having me, seriously.
Well, as Ocean was mentioning, as an adult, you've been using your unique gift to read people's medical conditions and tell them how to recover their health, and so many have as a result. And now you've written your latest New York Times bestseller, Life-Changing Foods, Save Yourself and the Ones You Love with the Hidden Healing Powers of Fruits and Vegetables. That's a very evocative subtitle to me. And I'd like to talk with you today about some of the specific fruits and vegetables that you highlight in your book. And my hope is that our listeners will be able to deepen their understanding of how fruits and vegetables can bring healing and vitality into their lives.
Incredible. I'm excited.
Is it part of your mission, Anthony, to help us to look deeply into the nature of fruits and vegetables so we can feel truly supported by these remarkable foods?
It is, and there's a lot of great reasons. There's something I call the unforgiving four, and the unforgiving four is a group of things that we don't want in our lives and in our bodies. And one is toxic heavy metals, which includes all the different variety of heavy metals, the mercury, the lead, the arsenic, the copper, everything. And then another one is the viral explosion, because we got a lot of viruses going on that are actually out there in people, and people get sick from them, and science and research just hasn't caught up to much of them. And then we have, of course, DDT and the pesticide family. And when I say DDT as being one of the unforgiving four, someone might say, John, somebody might say, well, I'm not exposed to DDT. Well, that's actually not exactly true. We actually even inherit it from our forefathers, foremothers, and they've been exposed to it greatly along the decades and decades before, and the generations before. And it comes back to it basically it comes right into us from at the beginning, and we're born with it in our livers, and that's another thing. And then one more thing to boot, which is radiation. These are the unforgiving four. Now, what I try to help people out with understanding is why the fruits and vegetables are so important, because we need that holy four, which I call fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices, and wild foods, the holy four group. And we need that to battle the unforgiving four, so we can really keep out of illness, keep out of sickness, and clean these things out of us so we can protect ourselves. So that's the basis of the Life-Changing Foods book. And with all of that, we also want to rise out of the ashes at the same time. And these foods, these amazing foods, the fruits, vegetables, and the herbs and spices, and the wild foods help us rise out of the ashes of sickness and also protect us. And so that's the basis of what I've been teaching too out there.
When you mention those four allies that we have, fruits, vegetables, wild foods, and herbs and spices, two of those, fruits and wild foods, I'm thinking of a food that's in both of those categories, wild blueberries.
Aha.
And when you tell us to eat wild blueberries, which you do in your book, you're not just talking about the antioxidants and the other nutrients that medical science knows are in this delicious food, though they're certainly powerful, and there's a lot of science to back that up. But you're also referring to survival energies that are packed into these berries, which happen to grow and flourish in extreme conditions.
Absolutely.
Wild blueberry bushes survive. Sometimes they have to cling to frozen rocks all winter, and yet they still produce loads of nutritious sweet berries every year.
What's amazing about those wild blueberries is we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And they're the one food or one species that just you can't kill. And there's a reason, great reason for that. I mean, they're built for drought. They're built for sweltering heat. They're built for freezing dangers, freezing cold. And what's amazing about those wild blueberries, a field can catch on fire and everything be wiped out, or a forest caught on fire. It takes so long for other species to come back. It takes birds traveling and dropping seed as they eliminate onto fields and into forests to get new growth back. With the wild blueberries, they can be burnt to the ground and they'll come out just shining bright. And they're very difficult to destroy. And when we consume those, sure, they have the antioxidants, and they even have antioxidants that are even undiscovered yet. And they have healing properties that are undiscovered, because if we think we know that much about our food right now, we really don't. We only know a fraction about some of our foods. With the wild blueberries, it's not just those antioxidants. It's not just that pigment that makes it blue, but it's the power to survive. And when we consume that, this information goes into us, enters into us. And that's what's incredible. That's the miracle. And that's what we want inside of us.
So when we eat wild blueberries, then, are we bringing some of that incredible tenacity to survive against all odds into our bodies and into our minds?
Absolutely. And one of the great things, you mentioned mind, and that's amazing that you did that, because it triggers me into something. Because what happens is the wild blueberry has a unique ability to take heavy metals such as mercury out of the body. And I know a lot of people, they're concerned about toxic heavy metals. They're doing things like chlorella. They're doing other things to try to get metals out. They're doing cilantro. But the wild blueberry can really remove the metals out of the brain tissue, out of the glial cells, out of the neurons, and protect the brain. And that's the great thing. Also, it can remove different things out of the liver too, such as the metals and other things. So it's really a unique food, something we can incorporate it. And if you can't get the wild blueberry, you get the cultivated blueberry in the clam shell, at the pint-sized clam shell at the store if you really have to. They offer things for sure. We want that. But try to get that wild blueberry if you can.
Well, in your book, you write that when we graze between meals with some handfuls of berries, we boost our energy, we boost our vitality, and we raise our frequency to bring us into a more positive and peaceful state. And I think that's very important. What I want to ask you is, beyond the magnificent array of nutrients that berries provide, do berries have energetic qualities that can give us support on an emotional or even a spiritual level?
Absolutely. We go through a lot of struggles. We go through a lot of trials. We go through a lot of suffering in our lifetimes, different levels for different people. I mean, something that's kind of seemingly kind of minor or small in a struggle could be a great deal to someone. And so we're all different. We're all different makes and models. And either way, we share one thing as a human race. We share that we're always up against something, regardless of what it is. It could even be just stress, and it could be other things. We have losses. We go through different situations and struggles in our life, and all of it. I mean, we go through betrayal and trust breakage. We lose trust, and because of things happening to us, and all that. You need support for that. There is support in foods for that, because the wild blueberry, it will come back no matter what. It will grow back no matter what. You'll always trust in that, number one. It's always there. It'll always come back. That information goes back into you. That's just one aspect. And then the fact that they could rise out of the ashes of being burned. And then so just like we get burned to the ground, how many times throughout our lives that we have actually dealt with situations in our life where we're burnt down to the ground and we have to recreate ourselves. We have to basically rise out of those ashes. Well, that's what the wild blueberries harness. They harness that, and they harness thousands and thousands of years of that inside of them. So when we consume them, it supports that very thing.
Well, that's
incredible.
That is incredible. It's beautiful. And it speaks to our interwovenness with the planet and its life forms. And you mentioned stress. I mean, so many of us live extremely stressful lives today. There's time stress. There's so many kinds of stress that we're under. And some of us are finding it hard to truly rest and recuperate because of it. I know for myself that I sometimes feel like I get hooked on my own adrenaline. And what I want to ask you, Anthony, is are there particular fruits and vegetables that can help us mitigate stress and find inner peace?
If you have adrenal fatigue, if your adrenals are a little bit slightly weakened because of the stress that you're actually under, and a lot of people are under different levels of chronic stress. It could be just at the office. It could be anywhere, wherever is happening in their lives, a relationship. And so the adrenals are releasing a lot of different chemicals, a lot of chemicals not discovered by science and research. We really have only tagged a couple of different hormones that come from the adrenals. We haven't tagged a host of them that come from there. In fact, there's dozens. And in those dozens that are released, fear-based versions come out because when we're under stress, there's a little fear involved, and the adrenals release a fear-based variety of adrenaline. It's a blend. There's even adrenal sports or adrenaline sports, and people get addicted to those. I'm not saying stop your sports, but bungee jumping and things like that is an adrenaline high. A lot of people get addicted to it. That's just one example. And it burns our system is what it does, because adrenaline can actually wear and tear and fray not only the central nervous system, but it can knock out neurotransmitter chemicals that are on neurons, where the electrical impulse is running down that neuron and not being able to function like it needs to get to the other side of the neuron because the neurotransmitter chemical is weakened and dampened. And when that happens, because adrenaline can cause this, we need some restorative powers. And a lot of us, we go without food a little too long. And I like to say adrenal snacks is what I call them that we need, adrenal snacks. A celery stick, a handful of walnuts, and a handful of berries, or basically cucumbers. It could be cucumbers, apple. It could be apple and a couple of dates. Whatever it is that you can do, you keep these snacks with you, you chop them up, you throw them in baggies if you need to, or in whatever way you can carry it, and you have these adrenal snacks. And they help protect your body. And the power in these foods help to actually inhibit damage from adrenaline. And that's what's amazing too. And at the same time, when you're eating these snacks and you're not going too long without food, you stop adrenaline from taking over and releasing. The longer you go without food, the longer you run on adrenaline. People drink a cup of coffee in the morning, they don't eat until noon, maybe even later, or they have 2 cups of coffee. They're running on adrenaline the entire time. Their blood sugar is not where it should be actually on a healthy level. Adrenaline's being released. They're burning up their system. And this is a practice people do constantly. And we have to have those adrenal snacks. We have to protect ourselves.
You mentioned apples a moment ago.
Yeah.
And in your book, one of the things that struck me is that you write about apples as an ancient food, which we know they are, that brings us back to the source, and they can connect us to a sense of sanctuary. That's a very powerful thing. And would this make apples an ideal food for when we're feeling depressed or alienated or powerless? And are there also other foods that can help us change the energy within us and around us so we can attract happier and brighter things?
Well, what happens is when we're depressed, when we're up against different struggles and situations in our life, we burn valuable glycogen storage in the brain and we use it up. So what this means is to restore the brain and to get the glycogen storage and the glucose back into it to protect the brain from burning up. Because we burn up when we're up against struggles, when we're stressed out, when we have anxiety, when we have depression, when we have different kind of confrontation in our lives. Our brain runs hot. Apples play a huge role in this. They're comforting because the sugar from the apple goes straight to the brain. The healing sugar from the apple goes straight to the brain, right to the neurons, and actually protects the brain from overheating. That's how amazing that is. And can that comfort you? Absolutely. Without realizing it, it can. That alone, because when you're nourishing the brain instantly, when it's overheating from that electricity, from being confronted or from being anything, betrayed, or something happens or you're backstabbed or whatever it is that's going on in your life, you burn up. The brain burns up. And then when you're eating apples, it actually does a couple of things. The ancient food takes you away from the stress to begin with. What happens is just eating an apple can remove you from that stress you're under and drop that level down, never mind the actual sugars from the apple that go to the brain, and they're so healing.
Are there differences between different varieties of apples in terms of this effect?
Look, there is for sure. There's a lot of different varieties of apples, but one thing people should never fear is if they can't get it. There's a lot of people that are like, well, what about heirloom? Heirloom is the best. Well, heirloom can be the best in many cases, but all apples are great. All apples, even the Red Delicious, is a powerhouse. It's a powerhouse. Honeycrisp is a powerhouse. It's amazing. Braeburn, these are basic ones in the grocery store. Powerhouses. Here's the thing. The fear of fruit is out there, and that's probably one of the greatest mistakes in the industries is the fear of fruit. It's actually a sad situation. We actually starve ourselves from nutrients. This is one of the missing links that's out there, and everybody's like, no, carb-free, 100% carb-free, no fruit, it's all bad. And I'm not trying to anger anybody out there. If they're in a strong belief system, I'm trying to just give you something to think about because it's so important to not avoid. You don't want to avoid a fruit. You want to be able to incorporate, even if it's just one piece a day. If you're afraid, bring it in. So, yes.
Yeah, well, when you mentioned the fear of fruit that's out there, so it's widely prevalent today, and a lot of people avoid bananas, for example.
Sure.
I mean, bananas are high in sugar, and people they've gotten kind of a bad rap lately, and many people have stopped eating them as a result. And Anthony, is that a wise choice for people to make, or are we missing out on something when we avoid bananas?
You know, what happens is when misinformation gets out there about sugar in general, so the misinformation about that, we lose out. Because what happens with bananas are antiviral, they're antibacterial, they're antifungal. And the sugar in the banana is one of the most powerful sugars actually healing the body too. The liver needs glucose, that's a whole other thing going on. The liver, if you're eating a diet that's all fat, that's high fat, your liver is just it's up against fat. Your bile reserves drop, your liver weakens over time from high-fat diets. You want to get these other foods, and you like a banana and other fruits and so forth, and leafy green. The banana is that important. What does it do? It feeds the liver, heals the liver. That's number one. It helps the digestive tract heal. It lowers inflammation by killing viruses and bacteria in the intestinal tract. It literally binds on to strep and E. coli, pulling it out of the intestinal tract. And if you need something else to know about it, I mean, hey, the potassium for the neurotransmitters in the brain is amazing. You want a high potassium food for that. I could go on and on and on. The banana is not a bad guy.
No, it sounds like it's amazingly good, actually. And yet we have people worrying today about eating fruits, particularly the sweet ones like bananas. And I can understand. I mean, gorging on a pound of dates would not do good for your blood sugar stability. But in my life, I found that by eating grapefruits and bananas and berries and fruits in general in my diet, even an occasional figure date, my cravings for sweets, things like cookies and rich desserts, have pretty much disappeared.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Have you seen that kind of thing in the people you've worked with?
Yeah, what happens is that we get those carbohydrates, those glycogen storages, we get deprived of them without realizing it. So what happens is we end up having these ups and downs, these blood sugar instabilities, these cravings. We end up craving sweets and all that. You could remedy that with exactly a date, a couple of celery sticks with a date. That alone is amazing. A fig with a dried fig with a couple of celery sticks, or fresh figs if you want, or fresh dates.
You've mentioned celery several times, and celery seems to play a pivotal, a unique, a central role in the diet protocols you recommend.
Oh, yeah. I started the celery juice movement many, many years ago. I mean, we're talking about, I think, going maybe 30 years now. We've been pushing the celery juice, and that means straight celery juice, 16 ounces of straight celery juice, or 20 ounces or 12 ounces, but I like 16 ounces. But the point is that celery has cluster salts, sodium groups undiscovered by research and science that strip apart the membrane on top that surrounds a virus and a bacteria, the very shell casing of a virus and a bacteria. It breaks down from the salts from celery juice. It doesn't break down from Celtic sea salt or a healthy salt that people might like or something. It breaks down from celery salt. that's in fresh celery juice. Now, you can put things in your celery juice, but it doesn't take an effect like it should. If you do it by itself, you can turn people around. I've helped turn thousands of people around. You can see these people. It's amazing. Just on my Instagram page or whatever it is, you see them every day with their lives changing, getting their lives back from virtually almost any disease. It's unbelievable what celery juice can do. Nobody knows about it, but we're trying to get it out there constantly. And it's like this battle because, people say, oh, celery, why what ants on a log? You just do a little peanut butter on celery with a couple of raisins. No. This is serious. We do the celery juice. It's life-changing. It's probably one of the most powerful life-changing foods, along with the wild blueberries, is that celery juice. I can't even say enough about what it can absolutely do. It's brilliant. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, when you talk about celery juice and wild blueberries, and for that matter, apples and bananas, as you've been describing them, I hear you saying that fruits and vegetables aren't a cute hobby for people to occupy themselves with until scientists discover the big guns that are going to save us. I hear you saying that these foods, fruits and vegetables, are the big guns, and they have life-changing power that's on a whole different level than we've yet discovered.
Yeah, it's so true. I've seen people reverse their eczema and psoriasis, critical cases, babies and children, where it was so critical. We're talking about cases of eczema and psoriasis, and celery juice alone, with, of course, some fruits and other things, turn people's lives around, saving lives. I'm not talking about a few lives. I'm talking thousands of lives. But research and science, it's just not a good money-making venture.
The profit motive seems to determine a great deal in our society, and often to our detriment. I want to ask you about two vegetables that I love, but actually very few people eat them regularly, and that I'm talking about asparagus and artichokes. I love them, and I eat them whenever I can. What is it about these two fine vegetables, asparagus and artichokes, that make them so wonderful?
That's so interesting. I put the artichoke on the cover of the thyroid book, and that I did, and the artichoke alone, I mean, the incredible power it has to help heal the body. That armor on that artichoke, that armor that's on there, that's the kind of armor we need. That's not on there just because it's making it pretty. And a lot of people don't think an artichoke is pretty. I think an artichoke is really pretty. I think it's beautiful. And so, but the fins on that artichoke, the fans that are on that artichoke, that's a protection method for that very, very vegetable. And basically that's the kind of thing we need for ourselves too. That information that's in those fins, there's power in those very things. And when you peel those off and you eat those, and you dip it in something, and you dip it in some guacamole or something or whatever it is, and you eat the artichoke, it's incredible. What does it do? It protects the thyroid. It actually protects the thyroid gland because of undiscovered phytochemical compounds, of course. Also because of the spiritual nature of even the design of the artichoke. It can protect your thyroid. It protects the liver in many ways. It's so healing. And asparagus really is untapped. That is extremely untapped as far as what science and research needs to do with asparagus. They can probably, if they really had the funding and had the interest, there are secrets inside asparagus to turn people's lives around with chronic disease, all kinds of different varieties of disease, everything across the board. And that's the power of asparagus. It's quite amazing.
When you talked about artichokes, the way they protect themselves, helping us to protect ourselves, I was thinking about something that we have learned, which is that plants defend themselves against pests through creating different kinds of phytochemicals in them. But when we use pesticides in agriculture and kill the pests, then the plant doesn't have to protect itself from the pests because we've killed them all. And then they don't produce the antioxidants and some of these nutrients that are so powerful in helping to enhance our immune system, our self-protection mechanisms within our bodies.
Well, that's a good point. I want to add something to that. something I think that's not out there yet, and I'm trying to get this one out. What's happening is the plant doesn't have to learn how to protect itself, but guess what happens? It does learn how to protect itself the wrong way. It learns how to protect itself from the pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, and rodenticide. And that alone, we should learn about out there, because that right there, it changes the game, completely changes the game. Now you got a plant, now you got a vegetable that is doing everything it can with its reserves, using every bit of its reserves to try to defend itself from a poison. Because whether anybody likes it or not, in the pesticide industries, the evil industries that are out there, if anybody likes it or not, whether they like it or not, what's happening is they're spraying those vegetables, they're spraying those fruits. The vegetables are actually trying to defend themselves from the pesticide. They're working double time, they're working overtime, and they're using every mineral, every vitamin, every nutrient, phytochemical compounds that are undiscovered to try to protect itself from the pesticides. This is actually tragic.
I'm hearing two things that I'm not sure if I'm putting them together fully.
Okay.
On the one hand, I'm hearing that fruits and vegetables are amazing, that they have all kinds of hidden powers and properties that can heal us and be to our benefit and help us live as optimally healthy a life as possible. And on the other hand, I'm hearing that if they're conventionally grown, if they're not organically grown, if they've been subject to and exposed to pesticides, then they've lost a lot of their life force. They've lost a lot of their ability to heal us. So what if someone can't afford or can't have access to organic produce?
If you're up against situations where you got to do conventional produce, which most of us are up against, I mean, you name it. I mean, me too. I'm up against it all the time. It's okay. Look, you get organic when you can. There's still power in these very fruits and vegetables. But here's the thing. There's always powers in all of it, whether conventional or not conventional. There's always powers in all of it, and we need it, and our body calls upon it, and we do utilize it.
Well, that's reassuring. And when I think about pesticides, we have a mental equivalent. We have a lot of us have harsh inner critics, inner voices that are constantly scrutinizing us and finding fault. And Anthony, are there fruits and vegetables that can help to calm the anxiety and even the self-abuse that some of us are prone to, that can help us to get off the perfectionist treadmill, which to me is akin to the pesticide treadmill, and to appreciate ourselves and other people more?
There's a lot of great fruits and vegetables that hold some of these qualities. So what I like to do, it just literally for anxiety and everything else that we deal with, it's just trying new items too, trying something you're not normally have tried or thought about trying or tasting. That alone has an ability to calm the body in different ways, because there's certain things that we're missing out of not eating enough variety.
When you talk about eating a variety of fruits and vegetables and how important that is, I'm thinking about some of the health fads and trends that are around today, and some of them are harmful. And one of those that's got a lot of traction today is a fear that cruciferous vegetables in the cabbage family, are harmful to the thyroid gland. They're goitrogenic. Anthony, how much truth is there to that worry?
Well, first of all, you got to look at a couple of things. And number one, the medical science research doesn't know what causes thyroid disease. That's number one. So why do we just jump on board with, don't eat these vegetables, don't eat the cruciferous, don't eat the brassica, don't eat the sulfur-rich compound vegetable, because it's got an inhibitor, so to speak. That's what people say. It's got a goitrogenic compound in it. It's got an inhibitor that harms the thyroid. Now, this is misinformation, totally misinformation. Inside these very brassica family, inside these very sulfur-rich vegetables, is anti-goitrogenic compounds at the same time. They're built into it. And it's just no one's focused on that. And that's a sad thing, because what's in cabbage, what's in Brussels sprouts, what's in broccoli and cauliflower is a secret weapon to what really causes thyroid disease. And this is what's going on out there. It's sad, but please don't avoid a piece of kale.
It's sad if people are avoiding vegetables. It could actually be healing to the very problem that they think avoiding those vegetables will help. And that's what I'm hearing you say, is that in the case of thyroid disease, the brassica family, the cabbage family, kale and collards and the rest of them are actually helpful. It's not only that they're not harmful, as sometimes some people think, but they're actually helpful. I want to ask you about another health trend today. There's a very famous, successful football player named Tom Brady who's achieved amazing things as a football player. That doesn't necessarily make him an expert on nutrition, but he is avoiding all the nightshade vegetables, potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant. And there are a lot of people who've come to the belief that these vegetables are to be feared. What's your... Okay.
Well, it's back to not knowing what's wrong with people to begin with. And so when you get rid of potatoes, the very thing that actually can help stop viruses, and you hurt yourself. I mean, I've seen people with so many chronic illnesses that are viral use potatoes and bring them back into their diet, and they start actually healing. They actually heal. But this is another example of nobody knowing what's wrong with anybody to begin with, and then offering advice like a fad or a trend that shouldn't be offered. And that's all that is. Now, if people avoid nightshades and they want to do that, fine. But if you're someone who's sick, like chronically ill, and you're afraid of eating a potato, something that can help you, now that's not good. If you're not dealing with a chronic illness, you could probably avoid all kinds of things and eat all kinds of things. I know people that don't have chronic illness, they're eating all this gluten every day and just living their life. They have no viruses in them, but if they ever get a virus or they ever get an infection, gluten won't be good for them anymore. It's kind of like that.
When you talk about viruses, there is a particular virus, the herpes virus, is extremely prevalent today. A very large percentage of the population has it. Are there any particular foods or dietary protocols that you'd recommend for somebody with herpes?
Nettle leaf is very helpful. Lemon balm is an incredible herb for all the herpes family, for the herpetic family. It's amazing. It's an amazing herb for the herpes family. Just lemon balm alone is helpful. And that's the herbs. You can make lemon balm tea and so forth. But in the fruits and vegetables department, I mean, you can't go wrong when you're doing fruits and vegetables because there's so many different things offered that are antiviral. There's a lot of antiviral varieties of fruits and vegetables. And just like the artichoke, that's antiviral. That's a great one. The cruciferous family, those are antiviral. And you just want to keep as many of those on board in your diet. And you don't want to forget that you can do these. Asparagus is antiviral for different species of herpes, of the herpes family. And potato, exceptionally antiviral, incredibly antiviral. That's how sad things are out there. We can't be afraid of a red-skinned potato, a purple potato, even a Yukon Gold, a russet potato coming out of the ground. So when you're doing you pull out an earthy potato, an amazing, red potato out of the ground. That's a red food, not a white food. This is another misconception that slipped in because of belief systems and confusion. It's just so sad.
Well, there are potatoes that are dark blue all the way through.
Yeah, how about that one? That's great.
I want to ask you about something. We talk about viruses here.
Sure.
And then one of the bad four that you had a different phrase for it, something like...
Yeah, the unforgiving four.
The unforgiving four, okay. And one of the other unforgiving four that you mentioned are heavy metals.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that it's widely understood that heavy metals can be toxic, and most people are careful around lead paint if they're renovating an older home. If they eat fish, they know to avoid those that are highest in mercury. But it goes way beyond lead and mercury, as bad as those are. I mean, we're talking about copper, cadmium, arsenic, nickel, even aluminum. These can build up in the body. They can build up in the brain. They create illness. And is it the case that when these heavy metals build up in our bodies, they wreak havoc in so many ways, and part of it is that they act as fuel for viruses and bacteria?
Yeah, what happens is that viruses actually eat. They actually eat, and this isn't discovered yet. So there's a belief out there in science that viruses do not eat. they do not feed. That's actually, I hate to say it, but dead wrong. And viruses consume food, and they eliminate food. And that's what they do. They consume it, they absorb it, and they release it. And when they release it way more toxic than they originally ate it or consumed it, eaten it, whatever. And so as the virus fuels itself off of mercury, if it's got exposure, if the mercury is exposing itself on viruses, or viruses find a way to get some mercury in their system, or aluminum or any kind of, or copper. And what happens is it releases it, after it eats, it consumes it, releases it as more of a neurotoxin, a more dangerous neurotoxin. Neurotoxins from viruses, not studied at all, not even understood. That's one of the most critical things that should be studied and brought to light. But I don't have that kind of power. I could get people the information so they can take care of themselves, be their own experts and doctors, and heal. But I don't have the kind of power and influence to actually change the medical world in this. But I'm going to say it right now that virus, when it eliminates that neurotoxin, which is mercury that it's consumed, and it's now leaving the virus a lot more poisonous, it creates all kinds of things: tinnitus, vertigo, tingles and numbness, different headaches, weakness, neurofatigue. The list goes on. Jaw pain, back pain, head pain, eye pain. The list goes on. Tremors, twitches, spasms, all of it, confusion, brain fog. The neurotoxin released out of a virus, such as Epstein-Barr as an example, because it fed off of mercury, is really annoying to people, and people don't know. So they go to their practitioner or doctor, and they don't have answers to their symptoms. There's real answers for symptoms. It's there.
It sounds like anything we can do to detoxify our bodies, to get rid of heavy metals, is critical. And that having them in our bodies as well as viruses is a double whammy that builds against us. So what are the fruits and vegetables that are most helpful in terms of eliminating these toxins?
I'm really glad you asked. Okay, I like Hawaiian spirulina. It really does a great job, but it's not going to do it on its own. I like wild blueberries. It does a great job, but I like to have it with a few other things. There's a heavy metal detox smoothie that I have on my blog, and I have all in my books, and it's the most effective I've ever found for getting heavy metals out, because it's not, it grabs onto it, binds them, and takes them completely out of the body. I'm going to give you the list of what's in there. And you can add your fruits and vegetables to the liking inside this, but you have to have the wild blueberries. That's critical. You have to have the Atlantic dulse. A little bit of the Atlantic dulse. You don't need a lot. It could be literally just a little strip of it. So a little bit of dulse. You got the wild blueberries, barley grass juice powder. Barley grass juice powder. So you got the dulse, you got the wild blueberries, the barley grass juice powder, the cilantro. When you package all these up, and the spirulina inside your smoothie, even if it's just a little bit, they work off of each other. They make it so one picks up the ball. It's like a guy running down a football field, and he's passing it back to someone else. And not that, I don't know if they do that in football. I'm not a football expert. But the point is, it's like you need a team in order to get the metals out, because the other has to pick up where the other one left off. It drives them completely out of the body, and it gets the best results. Now, if someone's out there, like I'm sure many of you are thinking, well, I've used Chlorella. Chlorella drops it really fast, and it doesn't pick it back up. That's the problem with Chlorella. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world or anything like that. I'm saying that the Hawaiian spirulina with the wild blueberries, the dulse, and the cilantro, and I think I forgot one already, barley grass juice powder.
Yes,
yeah, thank you. I'm talking so fast. And then you put it all together in your smoothie, whatever smoothie you like. If you're into different smoothies because you got a different belief system, say you're plant-based, say you're paleo, say you're in between, say you're vegetarian, but you like a certain smoothie, just make sure those are in there. And maybe throw a celery stick in there while you're at it, because you now know the power of the celery. And that can get the metals out of the liver. That can get them out of the brain and hold on to them. And guess what? Without making you feel sick, without giving you reactions, without giving you detox reactions. And that's how you get the metals out.
Would you mind if I asked you what you eat?
Oh, me? I just make sure no matter what, lots of fruits and vegetables. Which kind do I like? The wild blueberries are there every single day. the celery juice there every single day. I'm asked that all the time. And my answer is relatively the same, depending on, if I've had something a little different one day or not. But it's making sure I get a good 20 ounces of celery juice in me every single day, and make sure I get a good 2 cups of wild blueberries in me every single day. If you can't do that, you just can get a little bit of celery juice, like 2 ounces, because, you don't have the taste, or you feel like you're sensitive because it's astringent to sometimes. You can start small with some wild blueberries. But I like all the different fruits and vegetables. I like, certain seeds as well. I do incorporate a few different seeds in there, like some hemp seeds or some pumpkin seeds, maybe a sunflower seed here and there. I like that in the diet. And I like a lot of leafy greens. I'm never going to ever stop eating the leafy greens. And that should be for everyone, whether you stand on the aisle of the high protein movement or paleo movement or vegetarian movement or vegan. You should just make sure these are in there too in your life.
You've been talking so often about celery juice. What about just eating raw celery, or for that matter, steamed celery?
Still helpful. They still have their place, without a doubt. You should be eating celery sticks when you can, but the celery juice is where the chronic illness diminishes by itself, without anything else. Now, you can do cucumber juice all by itself, and that's helpful in many different ways too, but make sure that's at a different time of day. Make sure you're still doing that celery juice by itself.
So the celery juice by itself, that's part of the critical element.
Yeah, and gallstone sufferers and people concerned of gallstones and kidney stones, it's those mineral salts, those cluster salts that are undiscovered in celery that start to make pivots and divots inside those stones and starts to break them down. It's one of the most powerful ways we break down gallstones is through celery juice, or even eating some celery could be helpful too.
Probably the most popular vegetable juice in the culture today is carrot juice. Most people who are drinking veggie juices are drinking either pure carrot juice or a mixture of veggies that contains a lot of carrot. Partly that's because it tastes good. Is that helpful?
It's not hurtful. I like carrots because carrots go deep in the ground. Many varieties, not all varieties, they go deep in the ground. Their roots go deep. They go right down to the bottom. They get nutrients out of clays at the bottom of a bed, and that gets driven into the carrot, and that alone is the healing properties the carrots offer is wonderful. I love it. You grate carrot on different things. You can do some carrot juice. I don't like doing a giant, gallon-sized thing of carrot juice all at once. I like a smaller carrot juice because of the fact that not just because of say there's too much sugar in a carrot, not really. The thing is the carrot's misunderstood too. It's not like it's got that much sugar in it. The carrots have a lot of different other qualities and tons of minerals, you name it, like I said, that come from the clay. But I like doing the smaller amount because I like making room for other things. Like I like to have some fruit, also some carrot juice, a little bit of fruit, a little bit of celery, maybe some celery sticks chopped up. And I like to have a variety together and not just do the straight carrot juice all by itself. But some people like to do it all by itself, and they swear by it. There's people out there that have been drinking carrot juice for decades, and it's done miracles for them. And I got tremendous respect for the carrot.
Sometimes in the winter when I have not felt well, I've been drawn to root vegetable stews, and I will take carrots and rutabagas or turnips. I will take parsnips. I will take beets. I will take all of the roots that are wonderful vegetables, and I cook them together, steam them lightly. And I have found that to be very restorative to me, particularly in the winter. I don't know why that is, but I have found that.
Well, they have powers that first of all, root vegetables can store for a longer quality. They're meant to store for a reason. They're meant to actually nourish you through the winter. And it's meant to do that so that when you're in the middle of the winter, you have the power of the sun from the summer deep inside this root vegetable. You have the power of the earth from the summer and the summer rain and the spring rain. That power sitting inside that root vegetable. So as it's stored, it's storing information, it's storing sunshine, it's storing all kinds of nutrients, it's storing rainwater. Everything is inside. You bring that into a nice soup. I'm getting hungry right now. You just made me hungry, by the way. I gotta say, I'm thinking about making a good soup.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you for being with us. Talking with you reminds me of something that an eminent scientist, Albert Einstein himself, once said. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And he also told us to look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better.
Amen.
Anthony, on behalf of Ocean and myself, I want to thank you for helping us to look deeper into the natural gifts of fruits and vegetables, and of course, for being with us today.
It's a great honor. It truly is. And I want people to be well. I want them getting better. I want them prospering in their health in every single way. And I'm honored to be on this show with Ocean and you, of course. And both of you are doing great work in the world and incredible work in the world. And thank you for having me.
We've been talking with Anthony William, author of Medical Medium, Life-Changing Foods. Save yourself and the ones you love with the hidden healing powers of fruits and vegetables. Anthony, your insights are refreshing, they're fascinating, and they're galvanizing. It's been a real honor and a delight to speak with you and to share your message with all of our participants.
Well, you guys, it's really a blessing to know you and have me on. And it's a great point in my life to know that I've been on here with you guys, and it has great meaning to me. And so just know that.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you so much to Anthony William and to my dad and colleague, John Robbins, for that remarkable conversation. To express your opinions on what you're hearing and to find out what others are saying, post and engage in the comments section on the broadcast page. And do remember to refresh those comments so you can see the most recent ones people are sharing. And now I want to respond to a few of the comments coming in. Janet Henderson said, I love Anthony Williams, the medical medium. I've listened to nearly every podcast he has, and I've got all of his books. I was suffering a lot with gallbladder issues, and my vision was going wonky while working on computers daily. Since listening to him, I've been eating a ton of fruit, no more fruit fear, and ditched my primarily ketogenic diet. Little did I know, but the high fat and protein was overloading my liver and gallbladder. I did an experiment where I didn't eat eggs, dairy, or any grains, and only ate a small amount of meat once a day, every other day, starting last November for several months. I can tell you that now my vision is much better. No more watery eyes, I can see signs and screens better, and I feel like my brain is just working better. I lost some weight, yes, on fruit, and I feel like I got a lot of my energy back. I've also learned some powerful lessons from him on getting rid of heavy viral loads and bacteria. The advice to eat fruit was the best advice ever. Thank you. Wonderful to hear it, Janet. We also heard from Oksana Becker, who said, I'm drinking my celery juice right now. As a matter of fact, I've been applying Anthony's healing foods for a while. My autoimmune condition improved for the better. Anthony is amazing. Jody Bellevue said, where do we find wild berries in foods? Certainly stores don't carry them. Similarly, Susie Griffith said, wild blueberries. I haven't found organic to buy, so are the conventional ones going to help? Well, Jody and Sue, wild blueberries are best, and they're often found in the freezer area in natural food stores and supermarkets. Organic blueberries are also great, and conventional blueberries are beneficial too. So don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Find what you can, and also don't be afraid to make requests at your local store. They probably have access to more items than they stock. So if you make a request, maybe they can provide it for you and for others in the community. We heard from Catherine Knoplo, who said, I am so grateful to listen to today's summit live. Today's topic is very relevant to me as I'm 3 years out from a cancer diagnosis and treatment. I will be joining Dr. Lee's Eat to Beat community. Thank you all for the fantastic life-changing info. Education is key to creating change. And we heard from Kathy Schreiber, who said, I contemplated not joining the food revolution this year because I thought it might be a rehash of what's been said in past years. Wow, that would have been a mistake. This is eye-opening information. Thanks for all the work you do to keep up with research. The scientists and doctors that are doing this new expert research is amazing. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Kathy. You know, we're always learning more. The food world is constantly changing, and new studies are coming out every day that are giving us more insight into how nutrition works, how our bodies work, and the foods that we can eat to optimize our health. And I think Anthony William shared some things that haven't even been discovered by medical science yet, but perhaps many of them will in the years to come. This is leading edge stuff here. We heard from Kathy Francisco, who said, "So wish I knew this earlier. Both my parents died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 9 months apart." She said, "Maybe they could have lived years longer if they had known this. I know now, so I have no excuse. You mentioned this was helpful for colon cancer, but I assume this also works for other cancers. Am I correct?" Relatedly, Jennifer de Michel asked, do different foods respond to different types of cancer? Or, for example, does garlic work for all types of cancer? Well, Kathy and Jennifer, many of the foods that we've been discussing have been studied in relation to specific forms of cancer, but it is widely believed that the same factors that might be helpful with colon cancer, for example, might also be beneficial with other forms of cancer too. Janet said, "Oh, please say more about how to improve curcumin absorption to make more bioavailable to the body." Well, Janet, thank you for asking about this. Turmeric is an incredibly potent spice that's been linked to fighting inflammation, dementia, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and to supporting health in every cell. It may well be the most powerful health-boosting spice on the planet. Now, the primary active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin. It's often recommended that people eat a teaspoon or more of turmeric daily, ideally with some black pepper or a source of fat to support absorption. People in India have the highest consumption of turmeric on the planet, and they often have it with some coconut oil or, some coconut milk. If a teaspoon a day sounds like a lot, and to many people it does, there's another resource you might find helpful. It's a product called Curcumin Gold, made by PuraThrive. It contains a bioavailability breakthrough for the curcuminoids, which are the primary active ingredient in turmeric. The PuraThrive system enables a 180-fold increase in absorption rates by using a technology called liposomal delivery. And it's led to some tremendous results. We've shared it with our community, and we've heard incredible stories from people getting profound anti-inflammatory benefits and health support. PuraThrive also combines some vegan DHA and ginger oil to create this total supplement. And you can find out more about it if you're interested at turmeric4health.com. Again, that's turmeric4health.com. And Janet, PuraThrive wants to support you in your journey, so we're going to be arranging a gift to you with a free 2-month supply of Curcumin Gold. Our team will follow up to coordinate the logistics. So congratulations. And for everyone else, again, you can find out more at turmeric4health.com. Kelly Browning said, "I am so appreciative for all this information, your mission, and all your speakers so far. I wasn't able to listen this morning, so I'm so grateful for the replays. I was diagnosed with an incurable cancer in March of 2017, likely caused by chemical exposure earlier in my life. Though I ate organic the majority of the time prior to my diagnosis, it's even more important to me now after my bone marrow transplant. I am just now beginning my medical medium protocol, and I'm so grateful for the information presented in Anthony Williams' work. Eating a plant-based diet is a priority for me now. I cannot thank you all enough for bringing this information to all of us and the importance of fueling our body with healthy foods without chemicals. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Well, Kelly, thank you for sharing. Our heart goes out to you, and our prayers go out to you in your journey, and we want to gift you with an empowerment package to support you in applying all of this. So now you won't have to worry about missing out on or missing the replays when they come down when we start each new day's broadcast, because you will own the MP3s and the transcripts for life. Congratulations. Our team will follow up with you. And congratulations also to all of our most recent Empowerment Package owners, including Peggy from Arizona, Rebecca from Alaska, Donata from Georgia, Carolyn from Minnesota, Janelle from Virginia, Pat from Nebraska, Mark from Oregon, Terry from Maryland, Nikki from Massachusetts, Linda from Saskatchewan, Canada, and everyone else. And thank you so much for investing in your health and also for investing in our mission so we can reach hopefully more and more and more people with this critical message. We heard from Michelle Middaw, who said, I am a first-time listener to this summit. My head is spinning, trying to absorb all the information. My thanks to John Ocean and all the speakers for their knowledge. I am a 46-year-old mother. I'm currently watching my grandmother suffer with dementia. I have family history on both sides, including cardiovascular disease, stroke, and diabetes. My husband's parents both died of cancer. I can't ignore what I'm learning here. I have struggled for years. My daughter and son have also both struggled with their weight. I've spent countless hours and money on fad diets, on doctors who have good intentions, but lacked the knowledge I'm learning here. I have yo-yoed up and down with my weight for years. I've suffered depression and anxiety, and most recently noticed a cognitive decline. Enough that I've considered a neurological consult for early onset dementia. After what I've learned here, I have no doubt my diet is the culprit. My last child is graduating high school this year, and the time is now for change. Both of my kids are on board with changing their diets and learning as much as possible about this food revolution movement and its benefits. I can't wait to begin implementing this into our daily lifestyle and to adding more plant-based foods and decreasing animal-based foods and buying organic as much as we can afford. Thank you so much for this summit. I know it's going to change my life and the lives of my children and future grandchildren. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for participating and engaging and letting this message touch your life, touch your heart, touch your actions, and those in your whole family. We're with you every step of the way. And now it's time for our revolutionary recipe of the day with chef extraordinaire Karen Hartglass. Really, this is all about putting it into action. This is all about living it and enjoying it and loving foods that love us back. Karen is the founder of Responsible Eating and Living, or REAL, and the co-host of our wildly popular Plant-Powered and Thriving online course. On each day of this summit, she introduces a recipe of the day. So for today's recipe, I'm going to hand it now to Karen.
Hi, everybody. We are almost halfway through this summit, and every day so far has been fantastic. William Li talked today about how sweet potatoes with lutein and zeaxanthin have been shown to substantially decrease your risk of developing macular degeneration. I have been using sweet potatoes more often these days, putting them in everything, soups, stews, and salads. Today's recipe is my current favorite, sweet potato toast. You may have seen photos of sweet potato toast going around on social media. The sweet potato is sliced lengthwise and cooked in a toaster. I tried it once and I liked it, but it was frustrating. Sometimes the odd-shaped slices got stuck in the toaster and it took a long time to make them. I decided to try baking them, and it's so much easier. I'll slice up a bunch of sweet potatoes, place them on a parchment-lined sheet pan, and bake them all together for 30 minutes. This way, everyone can reach for their toast all at once. I love sweet potato toast best, spread with a nut butter and topped with bananas. You can spread sweet potato toast with hummus or avocado or whatever you normally put on toast. Personally, I think this is better than bread. Back to you, Ocean.
Well, thanks so much, Karen. So grateful for your inspiring wisdom and words. And we are now nearing the end of day 4 of the Food Revolution Summit. So I want to say again, to express your opinions on this summit and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. And you can always refresh those comments so you can see the latest ones. You can also join in the conversation on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Food Revolution Network. And come on back and join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 Eastern, 3 p.m. GMT for The Science. Get proven results for vibrant health. We're going to start off with one of the world's top cardiologists, Dr. Joel Kahn, who will explain how we can end the heart disease epidemic forever. Then at noon Eastern Time, you'll hear from Dr. David Perlmutter on new discoveries in brain and gut health. And at 1 p.m., you're going to hear from Dr. Neil Barnard on what everybody needs to know about dairy. And in the meanwhile, you can post your comments and share in the conversation. You can catch and share the replays at foodrevolutionsummit.org/replays. And you can check out the empowerment package so you can own it all for life and support our mission at the same time. And I also want to invite you to enjoy some delicious, healthy food. We wish you an exquisite, fabulous, thriving day. This is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 4 in the Food Revolution Summit.